this other laptop right quick. Keep digging. If you find something, shoot me a text. Call me. All right, thanks.
Pull the trigger.
Me for the Walton County Tax Tourist Development Council. Begun, it's 9 o'clock. Make sure you turn off your phones or silence them, please. And we'll stand for the invocation and the pledge. Bow our heads. Our Heavenly Father, we ask that you guide your guidance today for this board. We ask that we work together with our community, businesses, and our tourists to accomplish our goals for the benefit of all. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Board, microphones are off, so if you want to
Turn them on. Push your button. Okay. We'll start out with Director Jay Tusa.
Hi, good morning. I just wanted to deviate from the agenda just a little bit, take an opportunity to introduce some staff members who will be presenting to you today. I thought that'd be appropriate. We have some new directors who will be up here in just a bit, so I just wanted to introduce them, and then I just kind of wanted to address a couple of things with the council. So, real quick, our new communications director, David Dennis. David, can you stand up? Our new sales director, Dawn Trumper. Dawn. Our new content development specialist, Matt Alden. Hello, testing? Okay, thank you. Thank you, Lisa. And then Alex Green, our public relations specialist. There's Alex. And then we have a community relations specialist who'll be starting next week. Her name is Christine Packer. And then one person that we didn't mention at the last meeting because she wasn't here is Skylar Green. She is our sales specialist. She works with Carly in sales and with Dawn. And then we have Mike Kerrigan, our new marketing director, and he will be starting in a couple of weeks. He's a local here in Grayton Beach, been here for about 10 years. And then we have a new graphic designer, Courtney Wilmot. She will be starting June 26th. And then one position that we have open on the admin side is working with Jason Cutshaw, our admin specialist, and that, like I said, closes tomorrow. So we'll probably be doing interviews in the next couple of weeks for that. So on the beach ops side, we have a new code enforcement officer, Daryl Godden. We have 2 new beach ambassadors, Amy Wilkins and Jessica Highnote. And we have 2 seasonal beach ambassadors, Desiree Del Romano and Kerrigan Weekly. And then we have a new TDC code admin permit clerk, Melanie Walters, and we have a new beach maintenance specialist, Dylan Johnson. So we've been really busy the past couple of months getting staffed up. And once we get this admin position for Jason, we're done. We are completely filled up with staff, which is a good thing. So a couple other things just real quick, just wanted to bring to your attention, came up at the last BCC meeting in regards to some RFPs. One is the research RFP. There was some discussion at the BCC meeting, pardon me, and at the marketing committee meeting that was about, I think, beginning of May. So a couple concerns that were brought up was that we were missing research because their contract had expired. And so I just wanted to reassure the council that this is not the case. We have contracted with Zender to do this research. It's part of their scope of services, and they're not marking this up. So our visitor tracking study and our ADR study, those will happen as normal. So I just wanted to let everybody know things are still happening. And Zender is contracting with Downs and St. Germain, who has been doing this research for us for years. So just want to let everybody know that. And then on another note, with the another RFP is the multi-use path. And so a couple of issues with this. This actually started back in December, and as we were putting the RFP out there, Public Works came and said, hey, we have a great idea. We'd like to piggyback on your RFP and do the right-of-way on the opposite side of the road. So we thought, okay, this is really great. to be able to do this, have the 30A, Scenic Gulf Drive, all these areas look much nicer that it's being maintained on the multi-use path as well as the opposite side of the road. So with that process, we got delayed because we added Public Works component into the bid. And so we got a little bit delayed. The last BCC meeting, they awarded the contract, and unfortunately, that contract has been challenged. So we will know today whether or not the person who's challenging it will move forward. So we just don't know yet. Today's the last day, and they haven't done so yet, but they still have the rest of the day to do so. So that's where we are. Our team at the TDC has been maintaining that. They've been picking up the trash, taking care of that. So hopefully we'll get somebody in place shortly. Just depends on what happens today. That might prolong it a little bit because then it has to go through an administrative process. But anyway, so I wanted to give you an update on those couple of things, just in case you've heard anything, what's going on with that. I wanted you to hear it directly from me. So are there any questions?
Thank you, Jay.
Great. Thank you.
And welcome to the new team members. Now I want to do the roll call. Jim Richard.
Present.
Gary Brillmeyer.
Present.
Pam Avery.
Here.
Brian Christensen. Richard Velman. Commissioner Tony Anderson.
Here.
Matt Hagan.
Here.
Mark Hodgson.
Here.
And Tim Norris here. We have a quorum. All right, let's move on to next item on the agenda, public comments. Any public comments before we get started? All right, let's move on. We have minutes. Everyone's looked at the minutes. Do we have any corrections, changes? If not, do we have a motion? We have a motion to approve, and we have a second from Commissioner Anderson. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Those opposed, like sign. Motion carries. All right, let's see. Financial report. Mr. Jason.
Make some room and try not to drop everything. Good morning, Council and Commissioners and Chair. Jason Cutshaw, Director of Administration. This is kind of like my Super Bowl presentation. I got a lot to go over, and I really appreciate your time and dedication, especially with the emails I've recently been sending to you guys. First, I'll go over the March financials. These are the 2 months that have passed since the last meeting's approval. For the month of March, we're halfway through the year. None of the pennies were spent, over 50% at the time. But in like 90-10, most of the operations equipment for beach ops has been purchased by now. So you'll see that up in the 80 percentile. That's because most equipment's come in by now for the year. 90-30, we have a pending funding request for equipment for code enforcement, but that happened the very next month in April. We just had to wait for that process to happen. And what it was they needed some equipment, and we had to move a little bit of money from one of the existing accounts to that one to cover the cost of it. And let's see, we'll go to the reserve report. Everything's, let me see if I can function and see it. For the reserve report in March, you'll see that there wasn't much of depreciation at all in the reserve components to it. Sales were up for the visitor center, so we're seeing a lot of retail sales increase. They'll go over that later. But in April with the financial report, some of the things, it's 58% through the year now, and that's the email that I just sent you guys recently because the numbers came in. I was able to give you the official April numbers. So I want to send them out, if that's okay with everybody, in advance in an email so you can already take a peek at them and also have a copy for you here. Some of the bigger items on the marketed in marketing and equipment for purchase cleared, so you'll see some of the numbers getting close to the 58 percentile spent. The biggest change is the Land and Deepwater Horizon Fund. That is fund that's transitioned out of the reserves to buy property with. So it's moving from the reserve side over to the operational side, so you'll see those figures come into play. A lot of them, they'll stay at 100%. That's because that money's been transitioned already over for purchasing. And then the reserve report, that's where you'll see that reflection with the money for the land purchase coming out of the reserves going into the operational fund. And the next thing is the TDT report. I emailed the most current one and then provided a copy for you. As you can see, we're up for March and April. March was up 2.27% over month to month from the year prior, and April was up a whopping 21.89% from month to month from the year before. It really looked as if we had a flip-flop from last year where March was our bigger year and it flip-flopped this year to April. So, and that's an average of 12.56% increase year to date from last year. So that's a good trend that we're going off of, keep it in the double digits. The next topic that we've got, first we've got a request to approve those two financial reports for both March and April.
All right, do we have a motion to approve the financial report?
So moved.
Motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, like sign. Motion carries.
Thank you. The next topic that we've got is the TDT tax collection. The council mentioned it last time. We had a meeting, and I started trying to go and do some research and reach out to some folks. I called a few of the bed tax collectors. We got a list of who used Department of Revenue and who used the local TDT collector, and I got to talk to some of those. One of the big one was Flagler County, and I talked to the executive director there, and he gave me his input. He said that for the past year he's tried to go local, and he said the main reason is because when he finds somebody or they find somebody that, you know, hasn't remitted the bed tax, he was like, in 30 days they'll send him a letter, and then in 60 days they'll send him a letter, and then that's it. And he's usually like, that's usually a response I get, and I'm emailing and trying to call people to get more enforcement done. And so he's not happy, so he's trying to transition into that, and he said he's been trying to do that for about a year or so. I also talked to one other bed tax collector outside of Ocala, and they said that even though they use Department of Revenue, they also pay a nominal fee to a local tax collector in their region to formulate and put all the information together, because they said just for secondary checks and balances. So even though they're getting that input from them, they're still paying the local bed tax or collector's office something to be able to put that information data together for them. I also called the bed tax collector at one of our neighboring counties, and I talked to him, and me and him went back and forth. And me working for the state before, I said, if it keeps trending in some of the bigger players, which right now none of the bigger, 8 million, 10 million, 12 million counties that collect bed tax, they use all local TDT tax collecting methods. If the big players start moving into the state side Department of Revenue, we talked about, you can really see the strain that's going to put on their manpower. And we could see, if you got 10 people and all of a sudden they have 10,000 things to do, vice 5,000, then we're going to see maybe even more of a degradation in enforcement. But that was just a conversation I had with a local county and bed tax collector. Yes. I'm sorry, sir? Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah, and Jason, just kind of let the board know, this stems from the Maxima study that we had back in the day. I may have missed that if you said that, but it's just kind of want to make sure that we kind of follow up with that. I think Richard mentioned that in the last meeting to let's see where we are, and I think that's a good idea. Let's make a decision and let's move on and get that off our
Absolutely. Plate. And I've got William and here from the bed tax collecting office too, and he wants to show you guys some of the new initiatives and some of the new things that they're doing if you guys have the time.
Jason.
Yes, sir.
Were you able to determine whether or not the state DOR charges a fee on their collection?
I went and I looked, and I tried to call quite many numbers with the state to try to directly get in contact with somebody, but I didn't get any feedback, sent some emails. But what I did was I started going online, and using search engines to look and see. Everything that they're pushing out, they're still stating that they're not charging a fee per se for the direct collection, but a lot of the counties that are still, well, at least one of the counties that I talked to that's still, collecting over $1 million a year says they're still paying a nominal fee to the local TDT bed tax collector to put all the data together. So even though they're claiming Department of Revenue, which they are, is giving them their data, they're still having to go to an outside source in order to put the information together. So it could be a trend in the future, as far as self-sufficiency, especially if the DOR sees that the workload is beyond their manpower, I should say. But as of now, everything that I could find is they're not currently charging.
Jason, does DOR do any investigation into people trying to not pay their bed tax?
That, sir, the extent of what I know is more of a paper, once it's, been brought to their attention, or once that they've seen that this individual bed tax collector is not remitting the fees, then all they'll do is the extent of trying to contact them via email. There's not a big focus on the bed tax collectors or the TDCs that I talked to that utilize them. There's no enforcement that they've seen as far as face-to-face, person-to-person, or drive-by and accountability.
Just from my brief investigation of it, and I'll admit it's been brief, I feel like that the bigger bed tax payers, you know, they're all gonna try to do the thing. Most everybody's gonna try to do the right thing. But the ones they're going to be looking at are the Sandestans and the, you know, all of those, the watercolors, the big people. They're not gonna look at the little people. That's my opinion.
Yes, sir.
And I've had a little bit of dealings with the state on this BP money, and you know, my personal opinion, I don't want them touching our bed tax money. I don't trust them. They've already tried to sweep the whole 400,000 of the BP money, and thanks to Senator Gaynor and Representative Drake and Representative Trumbull, they didn't do it. But if they get hands on our money, I just really don't feel that's a good thing for us. But you know, I'm willing to listen to what everybody else has to say. But I met with with our people, and after they got up to leave, I told them, I said, I don't want to spit on the sidewalk with any of you around. I'm afraid I'll get caught, because they do a thorough job. They have a plan. They operate their plan, and they're very successful at it. It costs us a little bit of money, but I feel like if we let the state do it, in the long run, we're going to lose money. And that's just my opinion.
Yes, sir.
Jason,
Thank you. Yes,
it
sir.
appears from what you said that if the DOR does get overloaded, there's probably a pretty good chance that they're going to start charging a collection fee as well. I think, and I can't speak for everybody, but part of what Tony said is, I think one of the biggest issues that we have, or the tax collectors have, and I'm a tax collector, is a tremendous amount of money that the clerk of the court charges. And if we could address that and get that to a reasonable level, or at least justify why that amount is so high, I think you'd see a lot less resistance or a push or a movement towards DOR doing the collection. And I think that's where the clash is. I think that's where the conflict is.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Well, yeah, maybe William can say.
Richard, are you referring to the 3% fee? William's prepared to address that.
Yes,
Okay, good, because that's going to be a question I had. Do we have to pay 3% or can we negotiate? And I feel like it's just, you know, as we continue to grow, it seems, and we've got to manage the program in many ways, and that's our job, is to help the director and his team to do that. But with Tony, if with the state taking over, you lose some control, and with all that's been going on, just any dollar that goes into a bucket, it can disappear pretty quickly. And I think we've got a good team here, and sometimes it's what I tell my wife a lot of times is, I said, you get what you pay for. So be careful what you buy. And, you know, we hear these rumors, but we don't really know for sure what they actually do and what kind of staff. They may have 3 people doing all these other little counties, but what happens when you bring a couple big counties in, like we were mentioning? Chaos happens. And then we have to bring it back in. It's no telling what we have to do at that point. So anyway, my 10 cents worth.
Okay. No, I always felt, once I heard what the state, I just assumed, first of all, I've done very little investigating into this, so it's a good conversation at the moment. But I would have assumed that the state would have had a more rigorous enforcement arm, but it doesn't sound as if they do. You know, I think things seem to be working well at the moment, so there's no need to kind of make some push. The fact that if they don't in fact charge anything, I think it's worthy of a consideration. 3% on $20+ million is a lot of money, so we'd be remiss not to be discussing it. But you know, probably need more discussion to take place. And it doesn't sound like a lot of the big counties, like Orange County down around Orlando, have gone that direction, so that there could be a good reason why they haven't.
Yes, sir.
Tim, do we have any information on how good our enforcement is today?
We're fixing to find
Yes.
out.
Is William
Sir,
gonna?
you guys are ready?
Let's bring William up and kind of give
They were
us.
in my office last week, and I found out, and they're very thorough. And
The other clarification I want to make for the council, the 3% that the clerk charges is the maximum allowed by the state.
Right, that's right.
Thank you,
State-
Mr. Chairman,
State your
Council.
name.
My name is William Pennington, and I'm the Director of Administrative Services for the Walton County Clerk of Courts. And I thank you for the opportunity to address the commission that the clerk retains. I can report that in 2016, we did retain 1.73%. We did not retain 3%. We could have retained 652,000. We retained 376,000. So we do not retain 3% currently. We retain what we need to fund the office.
What year was that again?
16.
2016?
Last year.
William, has that number ever been at 3%?
Yes, prior to that we did retain 3%, and then in 2016 we switched to actual expenses.
All right. Good to know.
Yeah, it changes things a little bit.
Makes me feel a little bit better, that's for sure.
And also I should add that we have done a cost allocation administrative overhead study, and it was determined that overhead is just under a half of an FTE. Actually, it's 0.4994. So we feel pretty strong about what we charge for administrative overhead. Obviously, direct is direct, and we try to be good stewards of the bed tax money. And we feel we're doing pretty good.
Good.
Which we're going to show you our enforcement capabilities, which have improved dramatically over the years.
And we're going to hope for no technical difficulties. I'm Tori Waters. I'm a tourist development tax specialist. Noted, not a IT specialist. So I'm going to call one. Yeah, well, I want this PowerPoint to go away. Yes, that's it. Excuse me. I was told not to.
Sorry, but go back. It's not going to go back to the main screen nonetheless.
So
Okay.
what I did want to discuss, I know there's some discussion about the agreement with Airbnb. I think it's important for you to know why we chose not to go with Airbnb and make the distinction of why the state chose to go to Airbnb. I think you mentioned earlier about the enforcement capabilities. Why would the state find it beneficial to go with Airbnb when what you get from Airbnb, you get a check. You do not know who's paying it. Therefore, your enforcement capability as far as knowing who's not paying drops. You also do not have the capability to say, I want to audit property A. You have to go through Airbnb. You also do not have the capability under Florida Administrative Code to go back 3 years, which is the law. You can go back 1 year. So then you have to ask yourself, why is it beneficial for the state to sign that agreement? And in my opinion, it's because their enforcement capability is not what it used to be. Back in the day, they had auditors all over the place, and y'all may remember Chuck Pate. He was around. He was really good. Well, he retired. They didn't replace him. So we had to amp up our game, and if we can
Success.
did we? Okay. But that was one of the reasons we did not go with Airbnb, because there was no local control. We cannot, based on what we're doing in enforcement, know who's not paying, who's paying, because they're not going to tell us. We just get a check. And we felt it was in our best interest, your best interest, and the county's best interest not to sign that agreement, because we feel like we can do a better job of enforcement. And we're going to show you.
Yes.
We're real excited about it.
And just one more thing about that check with that Airbnb agreement. The parcels in Walton County are all, when they register with the state, they're given a sales tax certificate number with a prefix of 76. So what the Department of Revenue would receive had we signed that agreement is a fat lump sum check for every parcel that is a host of Airbnb. And that lump sum would not be divided between any of those 7-6 prefix sales tax certificate numbers. There would be no backup support for that, no Excel spreadsheet addendum, nothing that tells you John Smith at property A versus Jane Smith at property Z is paying X dollars. You don't get that. You don't get any delineation of like this zone map that you have in front of you. I gave you a printout as well because I wasn't sure you were going to be able to see the screen. We report the active units per zone every month to the council, and this is something that we have because we have unit registration. The Department of Revenue would not have that. So that's just a side note there, sort of to segue into our background information here. This zone map is a GIS map that we're using. We've got it worked out to where I'm working in the GIS software, the ArcGIS Pro program, to be able to see all of these units.
And it was free.
That too, that is true, yes. But just for a little background, the reason we're able to have this is because back in August of 2015, we began enforcing unit registration for all of our taxpayers and property managers, so that what that just means is every owner or manager must register their units. If they manage 903 units versus 3 units, everybody's got to register all of those. So what that's able to do is we know who's paying and who is not paying. Without that information, it's kind of hard to track down the ones who are not paying. So the purpose of that, of course, is our goal is to reach 100% compliance. So we're always working toward that. It's a lofty goal, but it is a goal that we strive toward every day. We also, in August of 2015, rolled out unit reporting, which the only distinction there is not only do you register every unit, but you report your dollars, your tax dollars, your gross rental revenue. You report that by unit. So we did make an agreement with some bed tax collectors, some of the property managers, those who had hundreds and hundreds of units. They don't have to do that. There is an exemption over 50 units. We offer that. So just that was an agreement we came to with them. We are in constant communication with our property managers. We're a base out there with them, and they can call me and talk about any of this anytime, and we've had extensive conversations about it, and we came to this conclusion. So anyone over 50 units that they manage, they still file a lump sum, their total tax, or their total revenue collected. And then the people under 50 do report per unit. So they show us the taxable revenue per unit. What you're seeing in front of you, if I can not click on things, is the zone map, zones A through D. We do have active units per zone broken down. What I can do in ArcGIS Pro is take this and zoom in and be able to see who's registered and who's not. I'm able to export a list of active registrations. I take that from our database in our online program, and I overlay it on top of this GIS map. And with that, we're able to get the screen that you see here. That screen, those different colors mean different things. So the green that you see, sort of a lime green, those are actively registered properties. Those are registered, they're bed taxpayers. They are registered in our database. The yellows that you see are inactive statuses. Those are temporary inactivations. So let's say you've got a long-term lease. You're exempt from the tax if you're longer than 6 months. Your lease is at least 6 months and 1 day or longer. You're exempt. Yes, sir?
How do you know that?
That they have a long-term lease?
Yeah.
They notify us.
We require a copy of the lease.
Yes. And when that inactivation term, since that is a temporary inactivation status, I set a calendar reminder on my calendar. At the end of that status automatically reverts back to active, returns begin generating again, and that calendar reminder lets me know to email them and say, we were not notified that your long-term lease is continued. Please be advised your return is due next month. And if they have another lease, they just shoot us a copy of it with those next terms, and we inactivate for their other terms. Another instance that status would be used is, for example, a couple years ago, we had all of that rainwater, all of the flooding issues. Several people had issues with having to repair their units before they were rentable again. In that instance, we inactivated those accounts for the term of their construction, and we set a calendar reminder for the end of the term, and I contacted them at the end of that term. The suspect ones, you do see a couple of red units there toward the right-hand side. Suspect status just means we suspect that you're renting. So either we've had an anonymous tip, we have found an ad online and you've not actively registered. We've gone ahead and registered you in the database and we're following up with them monthly. They get 4 different notices. Yes, sir.
Do you find that often? I mean, do you see?
Well, we do get more anonymous tips than I think everybody would imagine. We get a few of them. People in a neighborhood say, hey, we're not even supposed to be renting here, and there's a Tennessee tag in that parking lot or in their driveway, and they're from Texas or whatever. People just notice things. But also another...
Call on their neighbor, how about that?
It happens. You'd be surprised.
There's tax collectors who have owners that rent their units out and block them off.
Yes.
Really?
And so I know of some tax collectors that actually anonymously call and report their owners.
Really?
Yes.
And we have a letter that goes out with that, and if we can find the rental ad to support that, we also send a copy of the ad. We print it out that day, so it's a screenshot, it's saved. They can't go and inactivate that ad, turn that ad off and say, no, I wasn't renting. We print it and we send it to them and say there's evidence that you're renting on X platform, and they have 30 days to register.
And also, if they refuse to respond to the overwhelming evidence, we do have the option to issue a tax warrant. We would record that in the official records, and then they need to come to us and prove that our numbers are wrong.
We do a 90% assessment to do that.
We always do a
estimate
90%, yes.
Wow.
That should get their attention.
Can't do that at the state, I bet.
They don't do it.
No.
No.
Okay.
Those red buckets also could be when a management company has someone leave their program. They have on and off programs all the time. I'm sure that y'all are aware of how often things change hands down here with sales, but also with just they want to try out a new management company, a smaller one, a bigger one, or whatever. When they leave, we get a deletion form from that management company to remove them from their registration with us. If we don't have a corresponding addition from another company or a registration from that individual, and we have no evidence in official records that that property changed hands and sold, we change them to suspect status, and they receive a letter from us, a rental status disclosure letter, basically with a 6-question questionnaire for them to answer. I'm renting on my own, I need to register, I'm with X management company, and then we contact that management company to get them to send the corresponding addition form. Or if they're living in it full time, they just mark box and say it's now my primary residence, and we document that and stop hounding them.
And that's why unit registration is so critical, because you notify us when a property drops off your program, and we don't get notified from another property manager that they have gone on the program, then that triggers it to be suspect. And before unit registration, we wouldn't really know. Same with Airbnb. We're never going to know with Airbnb. But I think it's important to note that this unit registration, while it may have been difficult for y'all, it is so critical to the enforcement of the bed tax ordinance that we felt it was necessary. And that's why when we met with y'all, we understood, we heard you. And the 50 unit threshold, above 50, that's why we said, okay, pay one lump sum, but please notify us of your additions and deletions.
And if I don't receive them in a month, they get a reminder email. We track it with its unit reporting compliance tracking, is what we call it. And if I haven't heard an addition or deletion update, I'll send an email with an exported list of their current sub-accounts, their current registrations, and ask them to review it and send any corresponding additions and deletions.
We're all over it.
I want to mention to the council that a bunch of rental management companies met with William on a number of occasions to address some of the issues that he's now bringing up. And one of the little hooks that was really bothering us is that initially the information that they were asking for was, correct me if I'm wrong, it was the name, address, phone number, I think social security number.
Of
Well,
owners,
We never needed that.
Okay.
What we needed was really the property address. We did need the owner information, although we can get it from other sources.
Sure.
That's critical, because if you find a property is out of compliance, we need to know how to notify them. If they're in Georgia, Tennessee, wherever.
And in the event that a management company were to turn belly up or disappear to Bermuda with these people's money, the owner is still responsible.
Unfortunately,
Per
yes.
statute, they are liable for those funds to be turned back over to the county and to the state. So if we don't have a way to contact your owners, we're gonna be behind the 8 ball if in a situation like that. But we also, that column that you're referring to with the, in the spreadsheet with the social security number, that's a field in our database, and we had to follow very strict formatting guidelines to be able to import all of these lists of hundreds of properties. So that field had to be there for import purposes. Without it, it wouldn't have imported correctly, but we did put at the top of that it was not required after our meetings with y'all.
Some of the resistance was simply, we have proprietary information that people have given us and have never given us permission to give that information back out to another entity. You just don't do that, you know? And so that's, and I appreciate what y'all have done to kind of meet us halfway on that, because we were having some real ethical issues with that as rental management companies representing owners and handing out this information to a government entity, not knowing what they were going to do with it. You know? So, but I appreciate what you've done over the last couple of years since. I mean, this has been like a 2-year thing, I think.
Yeah, this has been a 2-year project, and Tori's done an amazing job, and well, you'll see the benefits.
The one other box that I didn't tell you what that means, those white boxes with the small hash marks that you see, those are homesteaded properties. So we're able to see if you're homesteaded or if you're not. And the perk of that is that I can zone in on a community
A condo.
Or a condo building or a section of the county for an enforcement project, and I can see you are homesteaded, you are renting, but you're not registered. I can see whether you're not homesteaded, you're renting, and you're not registered. So I can zoom in and see you're not registered with us, and you're not homesteaded, and you're on the south end of Old 98. You're very likely renting at some point during the year for the sheer dollar value of it. So we
You
can
can figure all that out, huh?
Yeah, so we can zoom in on a condo building
Yes.
and know everyone that's registered. We know everyone that's homesteaded, and it's those that aren't registered and non-homesteaded that we ping on.
That's our target.
So then we look for ads. We, scrape the web and see advertisements for these rentals. Then we can do a screenshot and say, we have evidence that you have been renting your property. It is incumbent upon you, based on ordinance, whatever, that you must register and remit bed taxes to Walton County. And we've never had that capability before. That's, again, why unit registration was so critical to our enforcement. And I don't really know anyone that's doing it. We're trying to think outside the box. We're trying to use existing technology, free when possible. GIS is part of the county, so let's use it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So.
We got a great GIS department too, and they are excellent.
They are so
Really,
helpful.
they are. They're awesome. Yeah.
I just wanted to show y'all. Oh, I'm so sorry.
Oh, sorry. So it sounds like you guys are like detectives, you're chasing down all these ones and twos and everything, which is fantastic. Do you feel like you have your arms around the bigger blocks of properties from the bigger bed taxpayers with the big dollars that are coming in?
Well, I think we feel pretty good as our numbers rise. I know Jay and his team are doing a tremendous job getting people here, but we are responsible for collecting it. We feel pretty confident that we're doing pretty good. But the missing piece for us is we need a web crawler, because like those Airbnb ads, they're very cryptic. You don't kind of know where they are, but we have found some software that will give us that information, and that's another reason we didn't sign with Airbnb. We don't need to, because we have the capability, probably in the next couple months, that if we can't figure out an ad by itself, that this software will allow us to do
And
that.
it's going to not just troll your big ones you hear about, your VRBOs, your Airbnbs, TripAdvisors. It's going to comb www.floridasnowbirds.com,
Yeah,
which
the
is an
next
advertisement
Airbnb that we don't know
avenue.
about.
I mean, there's hundreds of those, and one person, 3 people, 50 people could not troll those and find property address, owner's name. Most people don't put their property address on their
Right.
ad. It's not there. You're lucky if you catch a unit number. Most of the time you just get 3rd floor corner unit. They don't give you that specific information on the face of the ad.
So did I hear you right, that Airbnb are actually paying you, you just don't know what it consists of?
We do
They're
have
just not
registrants
getting
from
much back.
Airbnb. We do not have an agreement with Airbnb, so that money does not come from Airbnb to us. It comes from the host. The same way a VRBO ad
okay.
person that's registered just with VRBO, they register with us. The Airbnb people also do the same.
Right, so Airbnb will remit the state sales tax to DOR, and the property owner is registered with us. They remit separately.
And we also have a little flyer that goes into our new owner letters regarding specifically the Airbnb thing. We print it on brightly colored paper, and it is an attachment. And with that, every month, once a month, we send a letter to anybody who's purchased property in Walton County in the last 30 days. It says, congratulations, welcome to Walton County. If you rent your property, please be advised that there is a 4% tourist development tax due. We send those, matter of fact, we're sending 551 of them today. So we send those with an Airbnb insert so that people are aware that that change is recent, that agreement with DOR is recent, and that while they may not have to register with the state, they do still have to register with us.
So you provide very compelling information, very informative, to stick with the local instead of the state.
Sure.
So, but I do have to ask, year to date, the TDT of 3% collected is about 222K.
Yes.
You're saying that you've only charged 1.72?
Last year.
Okay, so for the sake of, let's just say it was 1.72 for this year, just to
Right.
keep the math simple. I'm not that smart.
Yeah.
So that's about 127K out of the 222. Is the 1.28% the difference that equals the 3% going back to the BCC,
No,
BBC? Or
Typically, each month,
how is that working?
we retain commission. As we get closer to the end of the year, for instance, next month, I told the finance specialist not to retain any commission. As we get closer, we true it up so that by the end of the year, we've only retained what we've needed to spend. So it may look higher now, but it won't be by the end of the year.
Okay, so on page 7 of the reserve report, I'm not saying it's false, but I'm saying that are we overstating what's being collected then? Because that's showing 3% collection, or 222K, year-to-date through April. Does that make sense what I'm saying?
Yeah, we've actually retained it, so that would be a true statement. But again, as we get closer to the end of the year, we true that up, so it will not be 3%. Like some months will be 0. Like next month will be 0.
Okay. I don't think I've ever seen a 0 though, or
You did last year.
did I? Okay.
He means on his report.
On
Oh.
the report,
Oh, sorry.
that's what I'm saying. I
On
mean,
the
this is
general ledger,
and
it's-
I'm just saying that this
Yeah.
is the only thing we have to
Absolutely,
go by.
sure, of
So
course.
I'm not
Yeah,
pointing a finger, I'm just
No,
asking that, how do we know the checks and balances, like, okay, we're not getting charged 3%, but we're reporting it, so in our minds, it's 3%.
right. Typically, through February, we have spent more than we've retained because obviously the October through February months are lower rentals. So as we get into the summer season, like our March and April, those were big dollar months.
Oh, yeah.
And like I said, we will true it up at the end of the year.
Is your estimate for this fiscal year that we're in now in that same range of 1.7 or so?
It is, because right now, we do all of this with 3 direct FTEs. So that's why utilizing technology is so important. The half of an FTE in overhead, so you're talking 3.5 FTEs, typically your operating expenses are not going to be that large. You have software maintenance, office supplies. We try to be good stewards.
Yeah.
So I think if y'all would prefer, I can true it up each month. If that would make it easier
I
for
would,
y'all.
I would like that.
Yeah, I
And-
agree.
and-
I think that's great.
Perhaps
Good
that should be
question.
part of the, I mean, not as lengthy as you're doing now.
Sure.
You're giving us the educational piece, but
Right.
maybe perhaps along with Jason's report, we can kind of go, okay, TDT collected is 1.5, 1.7, whatever.
Just so
It
you
is.
understand, though, that in the October through February months, the portion that we're allowed to retain may not be sufficient to cover our expenses. So it'll look like we didn't retain enough, but we can't retain more overall than 3%.
But at least we would be aware of what.
Absolutely, yeah.
Do you
Yeah,
agree?
yeah.
And I
we
know
know.
where he's coming from, because, you know,
Yeah.
you're trying to collect the full 3 in the early months when the revenues are low.
Exactly.
You
Yeah,
get to
got it.
the start of summer, next thing you know, that you stop collecting, and that dilutes down to about a 1.7 over time.
Exactly.
If you could just create a spreadsheet even that just shows us where we're at any
Oh, we can do
given
that,
Yeah,
absolutely.
yeah.
Any
Then
way
you
to
can-
checks and balances, I
Yeah.
think are great. I
Sure.
think this has been very informative, so.
Yeah, that's a good question, Gary. I'm glad you brought that up. Yeah, that would make more sense to us because we sit budget,
Yeah.
you know,
Absolutely.
on a monthly basis. And then you can chew it up at the end.
Right.
All right, good job.
This
got
is
more?
just a quick little pinpoint. This is the actual software. We wanted to show you how you can literally pan across. We can zoom in, we can zoom out. These are registered units that you see, all those green. So just so you're aware, we are doing everything that we can to create a level playing field for our tax collectors. We're doing everything we can to reach that 100% compliance. Once we receive that web crawler, I'd be able to zoom into, say, you can see my mouse here, this condo building in particular. I could work through any of those that you see that are non-homesteaded and not registered and send an enforcement letter and get them into the system, get them started, get the ball rolling. If they say, no, I'm not homesteaded, this is my second house and I just don't rent it, I don't want anybody else in my house, that's fine, we'll document it, and until that property changes hands, they won't hear from us again. They'll get a new owner letter when the deed changes hands. So we do have a plan in place, and we wanted to make sure
Sounds
y'all
like
are
you
aware
do.
of
You
the
guys
plan.
are bloodhounds. It's amazing. So, yeah,
But I
wow.
also wanted to, on the management companies that may not be as legitimate, that go out of business, and Tori mentioned it, by law, the owner is responsible. We try not to go after the owner because it's not their fault. So what we do is if we get wind of, hey, they're about to leave town, we can do a bank freeze, and actually, we've done it. On my day off,
Don't mention them.
I can remember one, I think it was in Bay County, they had properties in both. We got wind that they were about to shut down. We actually saw it on the news. And we issued a bank freeze, and I was actually off that day because I wanted to beat Bay County. I drove to Panama City with the bank freeze notification, and they accepted, and we actually got all of our money. So we didn't have to go after the owners. We try to avoid that because, again, it's not their fault.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Joe?
very well done. I'd like to
That's
invite y'all to lunch, keep you on my good sides.
All right, what else you got up here?
I just zoomed out, so now you can see those zones are comprised by the 16 beach communities that the TDC advertises. By statute, some of those are above the threshold that we can report on, so we're not allowed to report to you the active units per community based on statutory limitations, but we do use those. We have that information, and we group it by zone so that you're able to see it. This is a very high level zoomed out view, but you're able to see those parcels, those colors are still showing. We can drag and drop this and pull in, and if I click on a parcel, it's real-time property information. It shows the current owner, it shows me whether they're homesteaded or not, and I'm able to work from here for an enforcement project.
Wow. Good job. Any other questions?
I'd just like to make a comment that, congratulations to both of you for a job well done.
Tori's awesome.
I walked into the meeting this morning, and I think I'm the one that probably started this whole mess. Talking to some of the tax collectors in Oglala County, and they're bragging about, there's no charges and this and that and everything else, and that obviously got me going. And with what you have presented today, I completely have done 180 degrees from an hour ago. You've done a very, very good job, and I really like what I see. And I think the other thing that I want to mention is, just to echo what Tony said, once the state has the money, we've seen that with the BP money, and you never know. And then, they get more counties doing their tax collection, they're going to start charging a fee as well. And now it's local. You guys have come down on your price, which makes us all very, very happy. And so I just want to say job well done. I'm very impressed with what you presented this morning.
Well, when they came to visit my office, they sat down and it was mind-blowing what they showed. I mean, I've got a real intense look at it, and All I can say is the FBI is hiring, but we don't want to lose y'all.
So we'll get that commission information to Jason.
Okay, that'd be great. In doing this with 12,208 units, it just blows my mind that you have that kind of control, or that, you know, that ability to go after that many and make sure that we're 100% compliant.
And we wouldn't have that information without that unit registration, so we
Yeah.
That was
appreciate them
critical.
staying
We do
up with us,
appreciate
sending
that
those
very
additions and
much.
deletions. It's pivotal.
So my question at this point, board, is do we want to move forward and continue with the clerk of court?
I make a motion that we move forward.
Let's just stay with the clerk of court and let's get this thing resolved and.
Since I started the mess,
I'll make the
motion.
Okay. you
Second.
make a
Well,
motion.
Mr. Chairman, if I might, I
Yes.
think because of our current ordinance structure and the way we have set this up, we probably don't need a motion. I think assent of the board to move forward is fine, only if we were changing. I think we would actually need to take a motion because we're not going to change how we're currently set up. So I don't think we actually have to take action because all we could do is recommend that to the BCC. So I don't know that a motion to recommend to the BCC to do nothing actually has any legal significance. So you'd certainly appreciate that. And if I just may take that opportunity as well, say thank you to the clerk's office. I've personally been involved for about 8 years dealing with the clerk's office on some of these similar issues. And what they've presented to us here today and what they've been able to give to us has answered a lot of questions that I know prior boards and prior directors of us have had of the clerk's office. And I think this helps us all understand a lot more where we're at, and it alleviates a lot of that concern that we had going into the Maximus study. Because I know some of y'all have been up here dealing with it about as long as I have, and so seeing it put out this easily for us and explaining to us how they operate makes it a lot easier for us when we're getting questions about where are we in compliance with statute.
Yeah.
So them letting us know makes our job a lot easier on this end at staff's level.
Tori and William, thank you. And we continue.
Thank you.
And we look forward to continuing our relationship with you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Yep.
Okay, gonna do my IT thing here.
Oh, yeah.
All right.
Jason.
All right, sir. I am back again. Thank you for everyone for your patience. F5. Get those function buttons. Go back to the beginning. That's okay. We'll fast forward and get back to where we were. Before I move on to the FY18 budget draft, I want to go over something that was mentioned before, and I wanted to re-educate myself again on the study that was done back in 2015, the Maximus study. A little bit of the history behind it, so everybody that may be new on the board has an understanding of it. And it took, remember I've been here for a little bit over a year now, so I had to go back and rewind and go, it was like fire hose when I first got into the position. So that was just one of the 1,000 gallons that was thrown at me. So yes, sir. Yes, sir. In 2014, an administrative cost allocation was proposed by the county using the step-down methodology for indirect costs. And the county said that fee would be $356,735. The state can award up to 10% de minimis rate, but the county presented a less fee at the time. And this was done through OMB and through finance and through their own figures. The TDC at the time disagreed with the findings and requested a contracted professional to perform the evaluation of the cost allocation. That's when Maximus came into play. The RFP was put out, Maximus got the contract, and they did the study. At the request of the TDC, the Maximus performed the study to find that the cost allocation was over $900,000. So we went from $300,000, what the county was going to charge, to a cost allocation of $900,000. This was done by a CPA with over 25 years of experience, and he also worked for the Auditor General in the beginning of his career. He was a certified government financial manager, so I think the guy pretty much had his ducks in a row. He does this for other entities and state agencies. The current Maximus cost allocation study we are using was prepared using full costing principles. This was done using widely accepted allocation methodologies that are utilized in cost allocation studies used across the country. So a pretty standard formula, but even for me, who went through some accounting classes, I was like, had to look at it again and again and again and again. But they used a double step-down method allocation in their studies. And the Auditor General's audit, they did recommend that the county approve a formal policy for these allocations. And the allocation of these costs to the TDC is allowable by the Florida statute, and the allocation of the administrative cost that has been recognized in general by the federal government and OMB, and it's a super circular that 2 CFR 200. And what I can do is I can put all this data together for you too as well. I'm going to attempt to scan that book over there with the Maximus study too and create an electronic version of it, because I couldn't seem to find one. So that way too I can send that out to you guys if you have any questions. And Matt, please chime in, correct me if I'm wrong, but the methodology behind the step down, and this is one of the more simple versions that I could think to do it myself, was imagine you have a housekeeping department for a hospital. And in that hospital, you have other areas such as the OR, you have outpatient, and then you have admin. So the cost allocation for that housekeeping department goes by square footage. So how much square footage does the OR have to clean? How much square footage does admin have to clean? And you'll reverse and back out the cost for the square footage of housekeeping because that's their own department. Then you take that cost, like how much hourly are all these people paid, to work on all those floors, and then it's all divided up. You've got 1,000 square feet, you've got 500 square feet. How much you're going to pay out of that percentage for that service they provide. So it's a bigger formula other than that. And what I can do is I can send you some examples and some versions to it. But that's the formula that they utilize. A basic example of that formula they utilize in order to figure out what that cost would be. For the Attorney General, when the Attorney General audit was done, they asked the county to adopt a method standard, and they received a copy of the report, the Maximus study. The report was prepared using full consistent principles, and the Maximus applied the double step-down methodology for allocating costs. This is consistent with the general accepted costing principles, and they did review the methodology in the Maximus study, and they found it to be acceptable. The methodology does not include redoing the study every 3 years, though. That is just one way to utilize the numbers to charge out costs in what the county suggests based on looking at what other counties are doing. So when they tried to figure out a time frame, I guess, for how often to redo this study, because it's going to change, manpower is going to change. We went from 38 employees to 63. Some of the counties did a study for every 5 years, and then they put a percentage to it. But at the time, in 2014 to 2015, when this was happening, they looked how quickly the TDC budget had been increasing, and this did not look like an accurate way of charging general admin costs. And also the study was done after the FY14 audit, and so they'll use those figures for FY16, 17, and 18. But after the FY17 audit is done this year, they'll put it back out for RFP, get someone else to come in and do another cost study for it to see what the percentage would be or what the amount would be for FY19, 20, and 21.
I think part of the problem was that nobody knew how they came to the number. We were just told, Maximus study, that's the number. So that raises suspicion when you triple the amount that you're being charged. And if it would be explained to us in the detail, because my understanding also is that there was some double expenses, if you will. There was things that the TDC was paying that we're now being charged for. Again, there were several reports that were being that should have been included in the admin fee, but yet the TDC was already paying that bill, and that's the that's the issue. Or at least for me it is. Yeah. I don't know about anybody else. I don't want to speak for anybody else, but
and
a breakdown of how they physically get to that number and see if there's any double paying or being charged double for something that a bill is being directly charged to the TDC. Okay. That's the problem.
Okay. Absolutely, yes, Gary. And I'll, yes, sir, I'll look into.
Matt, I don't want to put you on the spot, but would you agree with that?
Information.
Would you agree with that?
It's fair comment.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I wanted to for the board and for everyone, I wanted to do as much research as I could in the time frame that I had to do it in to be able to understand it more. I've already reached out to the gentleman that did the Maximus study. I'd love to get more data from him and spend some one-on-one time with him and see maybe that he might be able to provide more information for us, or even attend, something in the future, and then have Melissa there too as well, so
I
we
think
can go
it'd
through
be
it.
beneficial for that
Yes,
person
sir.
that does the study too, to meet and consult with the TDC and also see if there is any expenses being, doubled up or whatever,
Yeah, absolutely.
duplicated. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, it's my understanding they didn't talk to anybody from the TDC.
That is correct.
so
They did not.
Right.
That would be good. All right, Jason,
Yes, sir.
great,
Yes,
great.
sir.
Thank you.
Absolutely. All right, now we'll move on to the FY18 budget. I know it's been a lot. You guys are probably tired of hearing me, so I really appreciate your patience. I'll try to go through this as quickly as I can. What I've provided for you too is a narrative, also copy for you. I'll email it to you as well. That way, it's just a conversational. Here's what our goals are. Here's how we're getting there with our budget this year. I also provided you with 2 different spreadsheets. I started really working hard after we met with all of you guys. I started looking at the numbers. Me and Jay sat down and we started looking at what we actually asked for in a given year, what we actually were spent that given year, and how much went back into reserves or rolled over to the next year. So that helped us kind of predict that. How are we going to trim down that budget? So the draft for the FY18 budget will be presented for the first time at the BCC meeting in July. And this is just a quick overview. In your book, you'll find the budget format as requested and some broken down codes for commodities. It's broken down in different departments by accounting codes used for commodities and service. It's correlated with the Walton County TDC funding established by the state statute 125.0104 of the TDC procedure for levying authorized uses for referendum enforcement. So it's broken down again in the 4 different pennies, and penny 1 and 2 for the core funding, and penny 3 for the beach nourishment. Being new to the TDC last year, I really followed the direction of the other directors, and we wanted to make sure we were providing everything that we could for each one of the departments. So after having a year to be able to sit down and look at it, me and Jay focused really hard on 2 main items. One was streamlining the budget to operate very close to our predicted revenue from FY17 without taking away from our core focus, which would be marketing, sales, communication, and beach operations, all while supporting our expanded staff. So again, we went from 38 to 63, so that was a big number on our operational pennies, the first 2. So it was really, we really had to cut. But making the budget more transparent was our number 2 goal. And we felt like that would be easier, and it's something they attempted to do prior to that we discussed, for each department to track under different primary accounting codes, giving them their own individual account to pull from when providing services to their stakeholders. So sales, communications, and all have their own accounting codes now. So you got administratives broken out, marketing, communications, and sales. So that way they can easier account for their spending, and they can look at it face-to-face, one-on-one with myself, and have a more clarity. And plus it brings a lot more clarity to the board or anyone else as far as transparency goes. All this led to a planned FY18 budget of $22,573,829 with a predicted revenue for FY17 of $23,930,403. That's if we trend and keep on a 10%. So that's why our goal was to have it a little bit below that, just in case we have a bad holiday or we have inclement weather. That way we're operating within our means. We're not spending more than we're making. This allows us to possibly not to have to account for any reserve money, unlike past years, and yet maintain operations and services to all areas. I have some of the figures and tables there that I've handed out to you all, and I'll follow up with a detailed category by category with each one of the departments for you. I'll email it to you because it's a big a mass file. But that way you guys can look through it in more detail in the future. And again, the very first meeting is in July. So this is a request for comment recommendations to the draft budget. I authorize the staff to present the draft budget to the BCC at the upcoming budget workshop on July 6th. Yes, sir.
So on these, like beach renourishment and some of these others, you have the contingency. There's not anything really budget for contingency.
Yes, sir.
Because you're putting it in reserve.
It's staying in reserves. Number one, that keeps our bottom line ask from being higher than it really should be. With contingency fund, we still have to come back before the board to ask for that funding. So it's really no different than the reserve funds. If it's in the reserves, I think it's just more transparency, and it gives us a few more steps for accountability. If we see a great opportunity to be able to utilize some of the reserves fundings for, it would be just like the contingency funding. So this is how we really whittled it down to what are you going to use, what do you really need, and so we were able to utilize that and really drop our main number.
And we collect interest on that money.
We do, and it actually, I got to talk more with William, and they still collect interest even if it lies in contingency, but with it in reserves, it's a solid show of all that funding collectively together instead of branched out into different departments. So either way, we would have drawn it on it, but this is just a little more of a checks and balances system by leaving it in reserves and not having it just in contingency line. Yes, sir.
Good, that's good.
Yes, sir.
Good idea. Any questions for him? That's good. I like you balancing the budget. That's good.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. I appreciate it.
Wonderful.
And this is quite a different one than we looked at.
Yes, sir.
a few weeks ago.
Yes, sir. And
Just a couple of comments on beach house. $5 million more than we had budgeted for. That's a considerable amount of money in 2017. Budgeted $4 million, spent $9 million in 2017. Can you clarify a little bit, or is part of that land acquisition, or another involvement?
let me look, let me,
Oh, I'm sorry.
no, no problem. Let me make sure I'm
Is that
looking at
better?
the exact, yes, sir. Let me make sure I'm looking at the exact same thing that you were looking at, sir.
Where you at, beach nourishment? Beach nourishment?
Oh, I see it now, it's under improvements to other buildings. Can you clarify that for us?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's with the budget draft for FY18.
This is the amount budgeted and the amount spent on improvement to other buildings for 2017.
For 2017, I
Yes.
got you. So you're looking at the,
I'm looking at beach ops.
The current beach
It's got a
ops.
$5 million difference, and it looks like the bulk of it is, over $4 million is in the improvements to other buildings. Is that this building, or?
oh, okay, yes, sir,
CDC
thank you.
building, or?
Thank you. That's the rollover that would have happened if we would have planned for a project, say in the year prior to, and this is one of the methods that we use to streamline this next year's budget. Say in FY 17, we plan for planning, permitting, and development of that project. That's a bigger number. Say the development's $1 million and the permitting and planning is $100,000. So if that doesn't happen that year, then that money, that $1 million, gets rolled over to the next year, in hopes that project gets completed. So one of the things that we did for this year is to go, okay, what are we actually going to permit and plan? But then, are we going to build it that year, or do we need to wait and budget it to the next year?
So
That's why you see that rollover amount.
So that is an actual budgeted number, but it doesn't necessarily mean an actual spent amount of money.
Exactly, yes, sir.
The only other question that I have is, going from 27, you cut it $5 million
From last year to
from
this year's
last
budget,
year.
yes, sir.
Even though you show an anticipated 32.
Or 23.
I'm glad we have a balanced budget, because at our meeting when we were presented with this individually, I basically told you I'm not going to vote for a non-balanced budget.
Right, absolutely, yes, sir.
I'm just wondering, you've skinnied this thing down pretty good, and I'm proud of the fact that you did it. And my question is, can you live with it?
Yes, sir. I believe so. I think with just the transparency and the communication, if we see something that would be an opportunity, we've got the money there in reserves, and we can come back and ask for it. It's it's one of those things. Again, it's looking at your project planning. It's looking at what did you have in contingency. Just the money. We had over $3 million in contingency alone. So just leaving that in reserves, that cut that number down, by almost $3 million. So really, we only had to trim, about $1.5 million, and a lot of that came from projects. Are we really going to do it this year? Probably not. We're going to get the permitting and the planning in. Great, if all the stars in alignment and we get blessed enough to be able to do the project, then we'll come back and say, hey, we've got that clarity now. We can make it happen, and then we can ask for it.
Okay, thank you, Jason.
Yes, sir.
Any other questions? All right, we have a motion.
I'd like to make a comment, and I don't know if I need to make it now or after the motion is made. Make it now. All right. One of the concerns that I have, and we've all watched this happen over the last few years, where the Tourist Development Council's budget has been attacked by the, excuse me, Tony, been attacked by the county commissioners.
Previous county.
Previous
county commissioners.
I guess my concern is in looking at this and presenting to the BCC is that every year they seem to dump more and more on us. You know, now we're responsible for, what do you call them, gateways? Jay, am I using the right word? That's right. Which is the medians on 98. 2 years ago, we got dumped with over $1 million worth of bike path expenses. And you know, now the county wants us to extend them all to 98, so we know that there's going to be some more costs involved in that. And I'm all for sending this forward, and I intend to vote for it, but I almost want to put in a motion that we direct Jay to tell the county that we don't have any more money, that they can't keep coming to the trough, and I mean, beach permits, which used to be in this building, now is on Blue Mountain Beach Road, and every year it's something. And I just feel like that when we do this, maybe rather than have Jay go there on his own, that the council in the motion says something to the BCC, this is the budget, but the council has asked me to tell you we're running out of money. I don't mean we're running out of money, but we're having a hard time balancing our budget, and if you start dumping more stuff on us, we're not going to be able to have a balanced budget.
Could I make a recommendation?
Sure.
To that? I'm not sure if you want to phrase that motion that way. I think it would be better taken if Jay went to each individual commissioner and expressed his concerns, saying that the board has their concerns about it, rather than dump it out there in a public motion. I think it would be better to try to, Jay to express his concerns and the concerns of the board to each individual commissioner.
Well, I'm speaking individually, and I certainly would want some feedback from the rest of the board, and I certainly appreciate you making that comment. Politically, that probably is a better way to go than to blast it out in front of
Well, you know,
BCC.
you can make some people mad right there at the meeting.
And I appreciate those comments, but I feel like the council, in recommending this budget, needs, and maybe we can phrase it the way you just suggested it, that Jay makes appointments with each of the county commissioners individually and just tell them, guess what, you know, there's no more money.
And Clay, please tell me if I'm breaking the sunshine law by doing this.
No, sir. There would not be a problem whatsoever with Jay individually expressing the concerns or carrying messages to the individual commissioners. He cannot poll the commissioners. He should not solicit feedback of those commissioners to then relay to the other commissioners. Jay's going to have to be very mindful of doing his job properly, but merely going to him. Staff can always speak to elected officials, and there would not be a problem with that. I do think, and I don't know, I may be misunderstanding Mr. Veldman's last comment. I do think if the council feels that they would like Jay to address some concerns about our current budget and our ability to continue bearing additional cost that may be asked by the TDC to be incurred, I think we do need a council directive to Jay to do that. I don't know that would necessarily be within his authority as executive director independently to go do that. And I think it's important that it's clear where it comes from. Obviously, Mr. Tusa serves a lot of different roles in terms of liaisoning to this board for the BCC and being the head of our tourism promotion agency. But this board up here is the one that actually has the authority to oversee TDC expenditures and to express concerns if they believe those expenditures are problematic or inappropriate. So if the concern is, look, we may be heading in that direction if this keeps going, either just generally taking that as direction, if there's no objection without having an actual motion might be sufficient. Jay can then just relay the comments from this board as a whole that, look, they didn't want to put this in the form of a motion. They didn't attach this as a resolution or a direction or a recommendation. But the discussion at the board table that everybody seemed to be on board with was this idea that, look, we want you to be mindful this is coming, and it's going to be a problem for if it keeps happening. Something to that effect. I think Jay can carry that message very well without it actually being attached to some kind of TDC recommendation or formal directive.
Okay. Then let me just ask the question, is the rest of the council in agreement with what I'm voicing this morning, that we're, at some point in the future, if the county keeps dumping stuff on the TDC financially, we're going to run into a brick wall?
Well, it would seem to me that the time to thrash that out is when we're reviewing the budget. So are there some examples, maybe some things that Richard has just spoken to that are in this budget that were not in the previous budget, and now it's been handed over from the county to the TDC?
Right.
And then how, would you be able to quantify that?
I might be able to go through it and quantify and look at if there's something else, if there's another service or activity that might vary from last year to this year, that may be a new project that's brought on. But other than
This is more in the nature of capital expenditure?
Yeah, I mean, for
Right.
instance, I don't know when this Gateway thing came up. Was that before this council?
It was.
It was.
Okay. Do those things come to the council?
They do.
Okay. So there's nothing pending right now, but there's been a trend, Matt, over the last, I guess, probably 4 or 5 years, where the county is slowly but surely taking stuff off of their plate and put it on our plate. And my concern is he's trying to trim the budget, you know, and balance it without going into reserves. And then the county turns around and says, well, we want you to do the bike path, or we want you to do the gateways. I mean, for some reason in my mind, I can't wrap my mind around the fact that cutting or maintaining the medians on 98 has anything to do with tourism. The bike path, yeah, I can understand that, but.
Well, you mentioned permits, though, that now Beach Maintenance are handling permits.
Right.
Where planning was. If, Brian?
Yes, sir.
It's my understanding that you wanted that, right? You felt like that was something y'all
Yes, sir.
should be handling?
Yeah, Brian Kellenberg, Director of Beach Operations. Appreciate the opportunity to speak. Correct. And that was in response to that I felt like permitting in my office, we could eliminate some of the problems on the beach. Instead of trying to handle them with enforcement action, we handle them with permit review process. And it's worked marvelously. So I appreciate you looking out for TDC money, but some of these things we have asked for because we feel like that we can do it better and it would be more efficient.
But Tony, there's been some that
Oh,
we
I
haven't asked
understand,
for.
I understand, but that particular one I knew about, because Brian
Yes, sir.
and I discussed it
Thank you.
quite.
If I could speak to that. I remember when I first sat on the council, and we were at a strategic planning meeting in Watercolor. And I remember there was discussion about what's the TDC's goal, what role does it play in marketing, are we doing the right kind of marketing, are we doing too much marketing? And I remember then saying, if we don't get our house in order, if we don't clean up our property, if we don't create an experience for the people we're asking to come here and experience this place, they're not going to. So I do not regret the decisions that have been made about taking care of the gateways, taking care of the beaches, from the money that is not our local taxes, it's from the visitors that come here. So anything that serves the visitor, I'm all for providing it. And I don't really see there's a difference between whether the county does it or whether the TDC does it. The monies that are collected should be used in a way that create that experience we all strive for. So that's my opinion about that.
Okay.
Well said. Richard, I think that you have a good point, and I think we can address those when they come up, if they come up before us. And I think, and we do now. And Director Tusa has done a very good job of communicating with the commissioners. So I think let's let him continue doing what he's doing with that communication line with each of the commissioners. And when those projects come before us, we have the decision. I mean, we can decide on whether to move forward with it or not. So I think, as they just mentioned, as Clay just mentioned, it stops here as far as moving forward. So, but I see where you're going, and it's you know, there is times that you do need to say whoa. And then Pam made a good point. We did do that in that strategic meeting. They're great to have, and you know, when people come here, they drive in, they see a nice place, they don't see trash all over the place, and you see more cars with bike racks on them now than you've ever seen in your life since we put that bike path in. It's amazing. And probably another dozen businesses that rent bikes. So, you know what? It has created some good environment and some good opportunities for our community.
Yeah.
So with that being said, do we want to just go ahead and approve the budget as presented?
Yeah, with the opinions that Mr. Atkinson made, I think it's a good idea to have Jay talk to the commissioners individually. I'm okay with that. I'm certainly okay with the budget, and I'll be happy. Thank you for your comments, Pam. I'm just trying to balance the act between doing everything we can to make the tourism experience what it should be, and keeping our financial house in order where we don't start running into deficit budgets and eating into reserves that we get another oil spill, we're in trouble.
Yeah,
is my
and I
point.
think you got a team here that's definitely got your mindset and their mindset also,
Yeah.
which is
So,
very good. So.
And what I say, I want the council to be okay with it. I'm not fighting you guys, I'm just trying to be fiscally responsible.
Understand.
And that's all.
And
So-
I'll-
Yeah, so having said that.
I'll just add to Pam, I believe that, the idea of beautification is really, it's a worthwhile investment. And when you look at the trend of our TDT dollars over the years, it keeps trending up. So we're realizing, I believe, a return on those investments. It's bringing more people, the right people. We can only fit so many people down here. So it's the ones that have those spendable dollars, the ones that we're trying to attract. Those are the ones that are going to come back, and if the place is starting to fall apart, then they may come once, but they may not come back again.
Having said that, I'm happy to make the motion.
Go ahead.
To recommend that the TDC Council, or that we recommend, I recommend that we send forward the budget as presented by Jason this morning to the BCC for approval.
Okay, we have a motion. Motion and a second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Those opposed, like sign. Motion carries.
Thank you all for listening to me this morning.
Thank you guys
Thank you
for
for
your
your
time.
good input, Richard. All right, let's see. Ms. Kelly.
Good morning, Commissioners. Good morning, Council members. I'm Kelly Carter, Marketing Coordinator. So I'm here to present the information about, as most of you probably call it, either sponsorship or the Advanced Grant Program. This program should be considered nothing more than a marketing event program. In November, the new program was taken to both the events and the marketing committee. Both committees approved it, and it was moved forward to the TDC Council and the BCC in December for approval, and approved in both places. Where we are at this time is we had, in the North Walton, we had 5 events apply to be part of the committee. Unfortunately, during that May meeting, we did not establish a quorum. But of those 5 events, only one of them is new, and all the other 4 have been part of it. So we recommend moving these 5 events forward with the events.
Which one is new?
The new one is the Apple Classic. It's not new to the area. It's just new to being a part of asking for help marketing it. And we have helped it in the past with maybe some giveaway prizes and stuff, just never actively marketing that event out to the public.
What does it do? Yeah, what is it?
It is a run. So
It's a what?
a run, like it's a run in Hammock Bay. So the 7th annual Apple Classic is a run. The 8th annual Marvel of Flight happens at the Definiak Airport. Bayfest happens in Freeport. The winery, the Shuckle Winery at the winery, and Lake Fest is around the Lake Yard in Definiak. And we've supported the 4 of those in the past. There is no dollar amount. It is in the budget for events marketing. So there is marketing support for these events in the media plan. We no longer give out money to the events. It is no longer a reimbursable program. It is a program where we support them through event marketing, and we do what we do is we put together ad placements on their behalf, working with them, and put those out to the demographics and to the people that are interested in coming to those events. And we work these events together with each other.
Okay, good question.
So moving forward, we also have the South Walton events. 24 of those applied. And of those 24, there are 5 new ones that have not been a part of this in the past. Those 5 new ones are the 30A Blue Crab Festival, which will happen in October, the Harvest Food and Wine Festival, which will happen in November, A Wrinkle in Time, which is presented by Emerald Coast Theater Company, that is kind of throughout the season. The South Walton Rotary Chill and Grill, which will happen in February at Seascape, just because you're not familiar with it. And the Walton Area Chamber of Commerce have put together a cardboard boat race. Other than that, all of the events as presented have all been a part of the previous sponsorship events grant. But moving forward, it will be just event marketing, and we will work together through the media plan to support all these events through event marketing.
Okay.
Any questions? That is the basketball tournament, and that is the name they give me. I promise, Gary, I'm not making it up.
So you get the benefit of that.
That's the name they put on the application. If you don't like that name, you have to discuss it with Coach Felix. I think he'll take your advice.
All right, so we need 2 motions on this, Kelly?
Just
for the
one.
North? Just one?
To
Okay.
move it forward to the BCC, please.
I make a motion, we move it forward.
If I may, I think I need to recuse myself as I have an event on here.
What, do you have the date on your event?
It is October
12th,
When is your event?
14th?
second Saturday
Yeah.
in October, which is the
How about calling me every day starting the 1st of October and reminding me?
yes, sir.
Which event is yours?
October
Crab.
14th,
The 38 Blue Crab
38 Blue
Festival.
Crab Festival.
Oh, that's a new one, okay. October?
I should probably do the same thing. Since I
The
have a
Seaside
few-
Dance Festival and the Seeing Red Wine Festival.
All right. No.
That's what Jay was asking that. What we have traditionally done, unless the individual is actually going to receive some pecuniary gain from this that's not otherwise more broadly beneficial, technically we don't fund these events. So our position has historically been, unless it is your personal event rather than your company's event, we've taken the broad approach that what we're doing is we're reimbursing for dollars spent as part of co-op marketing effectively rather than providing something directly to you, and that the benefit is to the event and the community as a whole rather than to the individual organization. We believe that would be sufficient. There is a legitimate question about whether or not those provisions actually would apply to this advisory board in this capacity, since you don't actually have the ability to spend the money anyway. That's one of the nuances that I know some of our board members heard me talk about, and I know we have some new board members that may not have heard this from me before, so I'll long form this a little bit for you if you'll humor me. We have always had the opportunity as a TDC council to make recommendations like this to the BCC. Technically, under Florida statute, we function under 2 capacities as an organization. And it's important that I make that distinction, organization versus the council, the 9-member council. A county is allowed to have a tourist promotion agency under 125.0104 sub 9 of Florida statute. That can be privately run, it can be publicly run. Most counties that have opted to do it at the outset of that statute roll it under the heading of the TDC. But the TDC is technically you, the 9 members who form the council. Just because we have one common name for both entities doesn't change that fact. The council's role is to review expenditures and help develop a strategic plan for the expenditures of tourist development tax dollars. It is not actually to approve those expenditures, but rather to consult with the board and make recommendations about what a strategic plan would look like and report any expenditures that we feel are inappropriate. What we do, because we have a tourist promotion agency, is we try to send these things that our tourist promotion agency are funding on the granular level rather than the big picture level through you. So that is an extension that we're doing. It is more of a ministerial duty in that sense than it is a practical duty. So unless the money is actually being paid in and it's serving a direct benefit to your organization outside of it being generalized marketing, we've generally not had recusals. We've had the fire district not recuse. We've had the mosquito control district not recuse. For instance, when the fire district has had contracts with our lifeguards, we don't have those recusals. And Mr. Norris is up there shaking his head. He and I went through this 3 years ago now, maybe 4 years ago. We went through the form, and what I did, because in the past people said, well, I want to fill out this form. And what I could do is I could have the form produced, our clerk could produce the form, and you go down, and I think what you would find is that when you look at the form that deals with the voting conflict of interest, you're going to recognize that you would have a hard time checking any of the actual boxes that the Ethics Commission wants you to check. So the position we have taken is we're passing this on through you to the BCC as an effort to be publicly transparent. That's what this board has tried to do, to give the public more input in the process. But in reality, you're not the one spending the money. The BCC has to. So we have not historically recused unless it is a one-to-one relationship or it's one single individual. Same reason on the North Walton Events Committee. If we had everybody who was involved in those events, like the city of Phoenix recused, we couldn't have any of the mayors vote on anything. And that's who makes up the whole committee. We never have a quorum. So we have not done that. Now, at the same time, if you realize, look, part of my job is funded through this, I'm not getting a paycheck if I don't get this money, you need to come talk to me. And we need to have a real frank conversation about what you can and can't vote on. But I don't believe in the way we've structured this that it will present a true conflict of interest. If anybody still feels after that they would feel much safer in recusing themselves, what we will do is this. We will separate out every event on this list that would apply to anybody. We will vote on the list exclusive of those as a whole, and then we'll go event by event and let individual members recuse. So the example in that case would be with Mr. Richard's event. We would vote on the entire list exclusive of that event, provided that was the only one in conflict. And then we would vote on that event separately with him recusing himself. We would then repeat that for everybody else who feels they have a basis to recuse. Frankly, when I've looked at other TDCs and I've talked to other counsel for other TDCs, they generally don't impose that requirement on them either, because, and in fact, in some of the TDCs, they don't actually even get down to this level of approving the events. But if you're approving the entire list package, what we're doing is we're approving the recommendation of the package rather than individual events. So
we just approved moving the budget forward, and the money for this co-op marketing is in the budget.
Exactly. That is your job. So this more granular level of individual approvals is not really a TDC function. It's something we have done better part of 8 years that I've been here as a matter of public transparency. And again, that's not to say that what you're doing up here and looking over these is not important, but I've tried to caution the council over time that when we get down into having a real debate about one event versus another, it's really something staff could be sending on once you've approved the budget without this council even seeing it. And that has happened in Walton County quite often in the past. We've had some TDC councils that never once saw these. That's changed, but.
Well, I represent the TDC in the events committee, where we talk about these events. We rate them based on criteria. And the way that it's been done in the past, there was money given to the event for marketing. But this year, there is no money being given to the event. It is essentially, the way I look at it, may not be correctly stated, but I see it as co-op marketing. These events are all going to be included, some together, some as a group, in different ways, but they'll be included in that $500,000 that will be spent on marketing the events. And this is just the list of them.
And I don't want to be, I don't want to get on the marketing side team of defining co-op marketing versus not. From my perspective, just in a purely legal sense, it doesn't matter, but I agree the way we've revised the program this year alters the scope of it and does make it more akin to that. So in that scenario, I feel there is less of a true potential conflict. And I think that if we ever need to go to the Ethics Commission on that opinion, you certainly start to get to a position of how could we ever have bed tax collectors participate in these purposes? Statute requires us to have bed tax collectors and owner-operators on the council. How would you ever get them to serve if they can't vote on the budget or anything else? So I don't believe that's going to be an issue. So that's my opinion. Certainly, anybody feels in their own conscience they can't. I think we're fine when we're doing a bulk approval such as this.
I'll make the motion to present this to the BCC.
Okay, got a motion?
I'll make the motion to present this, yeah.
We got a motion and a second. Commissioner Anderson, all in favor, say aye. Aye. Those opposed, like sign. Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you, council. From there, we're going to move to the media plan for 2018. You all have it in your packet. It is, what you basically have is the flow chart. The media plan in somewhat have been talked about, and as you can see, it does encompass everything that we're going to do for 2018. It is in the budget that Jason just presented. This is just broken out, as Clay stated. So when you look at that, you will see that it includes all brand opportunities for the Visit South Walton brand in all mediums, such as print, online, and radio or anything else. There are over 300 co-op opportunities in this plan that includes leisure, meetings, weddings, socials, and sweeps. This is where the events media will come in. As you'll see, that's not completely drafted. It says we will work with the events that you all just move forward to the BCC, and we will talk with them. Yes, sir.
Kelly, what's the normal number of, you said 300 media opportunities?
300 co-op opportunities.
Co-op opportunities. How many do we normally have?
Around 250 or so. We have quite a few more this year because we were requested to have some social advertising and do some things through Facebook. So there's quite a bit of opportunities through Facebook that we haven't had in the past, and so that's just something new that we're doing. And there are, I don't want to say there's endless opportunities, but with the visitor guide, there are lots of opportunities there, and we don't count those at all. So there is over 300 opportunities for bed tax collectors to participate in co-ops.
I thought that was more. Thank you. That's
yes,
good.
it is more, and those are the things that the bed tax collectors have asked for. One of the things that you will notice is there are lots of print opportunities, but those are the things that our bed tax collectors have asked for. They like being in the Southern Livings and those sort of things. Right. And then there are numerous online opportunities. So it's a very well-rounded plan that will, once it's approved here and move forward, will go out for purchase.
Are there any new magazines that we're going into now, or are it pretty much the same?
It's pretty much the same with the exception of Outside Magazine. That's a newer one that we're doing. That's a regional hub. It's very much got the outside vibe that South Walton has, and it's a great magazine. If you get an opportunity to pick it up, every one of you would like to see your property advertised in it. It has that outside South Walton nature loving everything going on. You'd really enjoy it.
This was reviewed by the marketing committee too, right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I thought so.
Yes.
All right, good.
Yes, we went through I'm on the marketing committee, and we went through the whole thing in depth, and it's a great plan. It's consistent. I think where's the big changes as far as placement?
So the big changes are the fact that our brand lends to double page spreads and full page spreads. We wanted to not be in Better Homes and Gardens just once. We wanted to be in there twice, that you would see us again. So what Kate did, our media buyer at Zender, she negotiated a page and a third so that we are still able to incorporate those co-op programs, those co-op vignettes that we want to place on there, but we still get that whole page. We like to do the spreads because it's just much prettier, and it really is what our brand is so visual. It helps us and helps you all. And then since we wanted to be in there twice, obviously we can't afford two-page spreads in there. So we knocked it down to a page and a third. But it's still, you're still able to have those co-ops on that as well.
Excellent. Any other questions?
No, that's why I asked. I've already
Yes,
kind of been briefed on it, so.
it's been completely ran through the marketing committee. Actually, Zender was here and Zender presented it. They did a really good job. Marketing committee seemed really pleased, as Mr. Richard says.
So I'd like to make a motion to pass this through the BCC too.
We got a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye. Those opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Kelly.
Thank you.
All right, next. Mr. Brian.
Good morning, Chairman, council members. Brian Kellenberger, Director of Beach Operations. Appreciate your time this morning. I got a bunch of numbers I want to run through with you. It's going to take about 45 minutes.
We better go for a break then.
We've got a couple items of business.
You're not keeping the harmony in the
Yeah, seeking that elusive harmony on the beach. All right, first item of business is request for consideration of our conceptual plan for our new regional beach access at Dune Allen. We had a public workshop on May 23rd where we unveiled the couple of different designs. Design A is the one that came out on top, and that is basically the bathhouse we have. I know this is a small version here. In your booklet, you'll have bigger versions. It's utilizing the same bathroom design we have down at Inlet Beach, which is one of our newer models. It has a center pass-through. This lends itself to this piece of property. When we bought this, we had anticipated getting around 35 to 40 spaces. We ended up getting 25 to 27. And so we have basically a circular path for the drive aisle with head-in angled parking on each side of the property. In the bathhouse, yes, sir?
Do you have 3 of them in this packet? Are they all
Yes,
different?
sir. They are. Concept A is the bathhouse parallel to the road right-of-way. And that's the one that came out on top in our public workshop. And the reason is you'll notice the bathhouse is situated on the north side of the property adjacent to the road right-of-way.
And you're saying concept A is it?
Yes, sir.
That's the.
Yeah, concept B is almost the same, except it has the bathhouse turned 90 degrees. And that doesn't lend itself to the what we're trying to do with our new regional beach accesses. And that is make them accommodating to not only people coming to enjoy the beach, but also people that are traversing east and west on the multi-use path.
Riding the bikes or whatever, walking.
Right.
Gotcha.
Right. And then concept C is our Santa Clara restroom floor plan, and it doesn't have the central breezeway corridor in between the men's and the women's section.
Mm-hmm.
It works good in a what I call a off the path or off 30A situation.
Mm-hmm.
You know, Santa Clara is kind of tucked back in what we call Bramble Grove.
Right.
And so it doesn't have that true connectivity to the multi-use path.
Mm-hmm. What about golf carts? I see you got bike.
Yep, that was brought up.
Bike racks.
Yep. As we know, the multi-use path heavily used by bikes, so we want to accommodate a lot of bike racks on the north side of that building.
Right.
That section of 30A is actually not golf cart compliant. So the speed limit there is set higher than what is necessary for a golf cart community, which is 25 miles an hour. Now, not that that won't change in the future, and not that people don't use golf carts coming out of those neighboring neighborhoods.
What is it set at, Brian?
25 miles an hour is when you have a golf cart compliant community.
35 miles an hour.
Is it 35? Okay,
35
my bad.
miles an hour is a golf
Okay.
cart compliant.
And
my
they
bad.
just changed that too, so I just noticed a new.
Yeah, it's 35
Okay.
or 25 from end to end on 30A.
Okay, my bad.
The sign should be up by now.
That's why I asked that is because my neighborhood, I mean, everybody goes to the beach by
On the
golf cart.
Right. So that was brought up during the meeting. Once again, this was a conceptual, a presentation of conceptual design. It's where I like to start as opposed to a blank piece of paper. We go and get something down. And so you'll notice down in the southwest corner of the property, there is some area that is not used as parking or stormwater retention that could be used as golf cart parking. There's also an area out by the bathhouses on each side that we could use. It would be in the road right-of-way, but in that area, for some reason, 30A was placed closer to the north side of the right-of-way than to the south side of the right-of-way. So it's off-center, sort of. And so there is some more room up there.
Man.
So during design development, we'll include some golf cart parking. The way this usually works is we'll have a 30% review, and these reviews will be at a BCC meetings, either during the meeting or prior to the meeting as a workshop. So 30% design development, 60% design development, and then final approval of design. So there'll be more opportunity, and of course, we bring it back to you every 2 months as an update. But we will definitely massage in some golf cart parking. I can't say how much will be there, but you know.
If you can get four
to
probably at least
6.
4 or 6 in there, I think you'll accommodate a lot of them. And
Right.
Because you don't want to take up the parking areas. That's one of the things we're trying to fulfill is
Correct.
parking. So
Right,
yeah,
right.
that's, I don't want to take the golf carts and
Right.
remove a parking
Right.
spot.
And we have some retention areas that could be converted to exfiltration system.
Perfect.
We don't want to do it underneath parking areas, you know, it's just not the greatest idea, but sometimes it works. And that beach sandy condition is not advisable, so we have open retention ponds.
Right.
You notice that middle breezeway connects from the bike path all the way across the road by be a signalized crosswalk, right through the breezeway, right down to the ADA accessible boardwalk. We're doing a format of that boardwalk design that includes a large observation deck at the top of the dune. And so handicapped people can come up the top, and if they don't want to traverse down the boardwalk, they can stop there and get a good panoramic view of that whole beach. You also notice that halfway down at our switchback platform, that's bigger than the standard 5 foot wide by 10 foot. It's a little bit deeper, a little bit longer. That also provides an opportunity for people in wheelchairs to stop and be able to have a comfortable place to get out of the flow of traffic and, you know, enjoy the beauty of the beach. Or they can traverse on down, and this will be one of our accesses. We're exploring a new product called Beach Access Mat. And it's a handicap accessible mat. It's a woven nylon 5 foot wide mat, goes down and allows regular wheelchairs, motorized wheelchairs to get down onto the beach.
We approved that not long ago. Are y'all using that at Ed Walleen, or is that where
We
it
haven't
is?
put it in yet. We ran into some FDEP permitting issues, but we're working through those, and we should have it in place fairly soon. We expect to have it in place now. We have to do a little bit of work at the end of our boardwalk there. As you know, most of the end of our boardwalks now are submerged in sand. We will correct that. As you also know, we have all those under design and permit to do our, what I call my facelift renovation, which is new deck boards, new handrails, get the toes of them at their proper height to the current level of the beach. And, but we'll get that access mat in before then.
Those mats look really good.
They do look
Yeah,
good?
they work and look good. Yeah.
Yeah, there's one in, at Grayton State Park.
Use them for
There
special
is
events
one
and
at
things
Grayton.
like that.
It looks really nice.
Yep. We, like I said, when we first got it approved, our initial research revealed that it did need an FDP permit. After we got started on it, and the new design of the or the access mat is you have a central corridor going down, and then you have what I call wings at 45-degree angles. And so there's two of those, or two sets of them, two on each side, to give opportunity for more than one person to come down and use this. And the 45-degree angle is determined to be the most friendly to turtles. And the issue we're having with FDEP is our local field office has never had to permit these. They've permitted them down in South Florida. So we asked them if they could figure out how to permit them, and so we can get them installed, because we have them ready. So.
It appears there's room, but are you in the design of these accounting for the future potential drop-off zones for?
It is.
say
This one includes what I call a loading and unloading zone right at the top of the boardwalk. So whatever type of transportation, if it's you know, a local resort community bringing people, if it is our, you know, future public transportation system, they can come into the parking lot, drop off at the top of the access, and circulate back out.
Well done, well done.
Appreciate it.
How about handicap? I see you got, looks like you got quite a few here. Is that more than what we required?
No, we'll put in what's required by, you know, the land development code.
Okay, looks like plenty.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So anyway, so the request today is to move this forward to the BCC for approval of the conceptual design and continue on with design development.
One of the three concepts, right? approving the concept A.
Right.
Okay, got it.
So we need to approve that?
Yes, sir. I'd appreciate some sort of action on it to move forward.
Second motion.
We got a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries.
Okay. Also with this, right now we're calling this the Dune Allen Regional Beach Access. Our other existing regional beach access, which is locally called Fort Panic, its official name is Dune Allen Regional Beach Access. So at our next meeting, I'd like to have some discussion about a formal naming of this regional beach access. So if y'all can be thinking about that, all of our other, most of our other regional beach accesses are named after the community they're in or the end of the road that they happen to be built on. And I don't know if we want to continue on with that convention or if we want to
What's wrong with Fort Panic?
Pardon me?
What's wrong with Fort Panic?
There's nothing wrong with Fort Panic. I mean, that's what people call it, but the actual name of it, of our existing one, is called Dune Allen Regional Beach Access. But everybody in the area knows it as Fort Panic.
Why don't we have a little contest with the community and see what they come up with?
I agree. I mean, there ought to be some process where we.
Why don't we call the one that's now called Dune Allen Regional? Why don't we just call that one Fort Panic and call this one the Dune Allen Regional?
Right.
Well, that's what I'm asking for is that our next meeting, let's think about it between now and then. And,
yeah, I mean, how much?
I think the house that was right next door, it was the rental home, and I think they called it Fort Panic. I'm not sure if that's exactly.
Well, that road that takes off at an angle right there is Fort Panic
Fort
Road.
Panic Road. Yeah, there you go. Fort Panic.
So.
I think we ought to change that one to.
Bless it, sprinkle holy water on it, and we're good to go. Come on.
Okay, we'll bring that up for business at the next meeting and make some decisions. Okay, also, in conjunction with this new regional beach access, as you know, we have a 30A parking project going on. We've completed parking down in the Graydon Beach area, and we're starting on the next three focus areas, next four focus areas, which is Eastern Lake, Blue Mountain Beach area, Gulf Place area, and in front of Fort Panic, and a little bit further west on the south right-of-way. What I would like to ask today is consideration for starting conceptual design of continuing the right-of-way parking, parallel parking on the south side of 30A to connect these two regional beach accesses. So our current 30A parking project includes a small section. If you're looking at that photograph right there, you have satellite view and then you have plan view. This little stretch of right-of-way parking starts just on the east side of our new regional beach access that we're starting design development on. And then the area in front of Fort Panic will also be improved. And what I'd like to do is connect those two areas with the same type of right-of-way parking. So the request today is request for approval to BCC to start conceptual design right-of-way parking to mimic what we're putting in already to connect those two areas.
So let me ask one question. That's right in front of those condos right there. It's that piece that goes on the south side.
Yep, Dune 1. Right now, we already have parking approved, planned, designed, permitted to be put in right there, and that's those 6 parking places you see right there. So moving east from that point, you have a few more driveway cuts. But once again, since that road is offset to the north, it lends itself, there's a very large right-of-way to the south. And as you progress past the next 4 single-family dwellings, you then come to the Fort Panic area where all those houses that are on Fort Panic actually face south. So it's the backs of their houses and there are no driveway cuts. There's a few driveway cuts between Dune 1 and where Fort Panic Road ends, its western end.
Brian, is Fort Panic a private road or is it a public county road?
I believe it's a county-maintained road. I'd have to verify that, but I'd have to check and see.
It's got a green street sign?
Yeah.
And it's county?
Yeah. You know, it's a paved surface, so I would assume it is. So anyway, and also part of this is in our area at Fort Panic, where we're doing the improved right-of-way parking on the south side of the road. We attempted to do it on the north side of the road, but because of that large drainage ditch, it is actually the end of the drainage plain basin of that whole area there. It was going to be too cost prohibitive to pipe it. It was going to require like a 6-foot pipe. And then the other option was to move the path and change it with the ditch. That didn't become feasible. So what we ended up doing was curb and gutter and what I call hardscape and landscape to keep people from parking over there. As you know, right now, there's a fence of the green delineator poles with the reflective. We're going to change all that to, native grasses and what I call resort community mentality, hardscape, landscape. If you don't want people parking there, you got to put some physical barrier to keep them from parking there. And so we would continue that down the north side of the right-of-way as well. As you know, the multi-use path runs down on the north side of the road. And there's a small strip of grass in between there that people park in. It's very unsafe because the doors swing into the multi-use path and also swing into the roadway. And so by landscape hardscaping that whole north right-of-way, putting right-of-way parallel parking on the south right-of-way, we've now connected our 2 regional beach accesses and beautified that section 38, and it'll be a good representation of what we should consider all the way down 30A.
Let me just make a comment. The one that you just finished at Drayton Beach looks fantastic.
Yeah.
Really, man, I tell you, and people are using it. They are using it.
Looks very nice.
Yeah.
Very well done.
Which one?
The one at Drayton.
The one at Drayton that you're just finishing up?
Yeah.
It looks fantastic.
Yeah, good.
It looks good. I mean, it's pretty.
Mm-hmm.
It's rested up. Question on that Fort Panic, the south parking. Now, there was an accident, one or maybe a couple that have happened there. So we're going to be able to make sure that doesn't happen?
Yes, all of this design includes what they call site triangles, appropriate site triangles. So it puts in hardscape and landscape to keep people from parking too close to the entrances. And that gives people that are pulling out the ability to see east and west and make appropriate decisions. Make good decisions. Not to say that, you know how it gets on 30.
Depends on who's driving,
Right.
You just never know.
Right. But anyway, like I say,
how
this
many
would be,
parking places did you say we're talking about?
Pardon me?
How many parking places did you say?
To connect that area down to the new area, I would say would be in the neighborhood of probably 20 spaces. And then there'll be also the connecting sidewalk. And we'll have, a signalized crosswalk adjacent to our new Regional Beach access. We have one right now that's on the east end of the Fort Panic. That one may be relocated to the west end. Right there is where our bike path changes from one side of the road to the other. So we're looking at different options. But all of this, like I say, this consideration request today is to start a conceptual design by engaging one of our engineering firms from our engineering services pool, not to exceed $7,500. And we have money in our 3,100 budget that is used for this particular purpose.
All right, we need a motion?
Motion to approve.
We got a motion? And a second, Mark Hodgson. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Those opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you very much. Next item is the beach management plan public workshop. As you know, in the past, we have been discussing with our coastal engineering services contractor, Taylor Engineering. Matt Trammell is our engineer assigned to us. When the beach renourishment project, HSDR, was not moved forward, it was determined that we really had no plan on what to do. So what this is a public workshop to discuss what we call Plan B, Plan C, for when we have an event. And so this public workshop is scheduled for June 21st. 5 p.m. in this room, and Matt and his associates will be here to give a short presentation of what those different alternate plans are, a few other options of how we ought to be managing our beach resource, as in far as historical documentation and stuff like that. So that's a FYI. Meet y'all here on June 21st. And with that, I'll turn it over to, yes, sir.
I talked to you before the meeting. Is it okay to bring it up now?
Yes, sir, bring it up.
As y'all know, we bought the beach property from Jay Odom, just north of Drayton Beach, and that parking lot is slap full every day. And what I asked Brian Nicholas to bring up to the council is that a lot of those people park their cars there and they're dependent on someone else, either a shuttle bus or sometimes somebody at pool, like five passengers, and take them to a workplace or whatever. And I drive by it every morning, I drive by it every afternoon, and they're either standing out in the heat of the sun, or they're standing outside with an umbrella if it's raining, because if they're sitting in their cars, whoever's picking them up can't find them. So my suggestion is, and it's a fairly simple one, and Brian came up with a pretty good solution, is to either get a small lean-to or something to keep the weather or the heat, get them out of the sun into shade. We suggested a couple of tents. I thought maybe a three-sided with a slanted roof, just to get them out of the weather. Because every day that I drive by there, there's people standing in the sun, or they're standing with umbrellas waiting for the ride to show up. I don't think it's an expensive thing to do. We provide the parking, the people are using it, and we just got a little hiccup there that I think we need to fix.
Yeah, I even offered to buy the tent and put there.
Yep, yeah. Like I say, Richard, appreciate you bringing that up. Pam did bring this up to us a week or so ago. Sounds like a great idea. As usual, we always check all of our legal issues and anything, and it was determined that it'd be better for us to set the tents up. So I've asked Josh Irvin, our beach maintenance manager, to procure us a couple of tents, and we will secure them appropriately with some ground augers. And it'll be either two 10 by 10 or something close to that size. And it'll be our typical pop-up tent, and we'll maintain them as required throughout this summer season. And yeah, like I say, that project you'll see in our updates. We are exploring some different options on how to develop that into a central parking area. There'll be some more discussion about that a little bit later. So,
And while we're on that topic, I want to specifically thank Jay and Jason and you and whoever of your team I'm missing, thank them for us, that the speed at which you were able to take this process to something the community can actually use, I really applaud. And it served a lot of the community very well. It will continue to do so. And you've been super responsive to things like this that are tweaks that are needed. But from the time that you actually got the land purchased until you did something with it, thank you, thank you,
yeah,
thank you.
that'd be Josh Irvin. He's our beach maintenance manager.
Where's
He makes things.
Josh.
They really had parking bumpers in, and people
Yeah.
were pouring in. It was unbelievable.
Yeah.
Good job. There you go, guys.
Hey, also bringing harmony to the parking lot.
Hey, Brian, just a side note,
Yes,
since
sir.
we've changed our tent sizes on the beach, I understand Walmart has a lot of 10 by 10 tents.
Probably get a good deal, huh?
Hey, speaking of which, the tents, we do have storms, so.
Like I say, we'll maintain them. We'll
Okay.
use, they make some small ground augers, screw them in, tie them down so they won't blow away. Now, not to say that the wind won't just deform them, but if they do, we'll get new ones or whatever.
Okay.
That's what I meant by maintaining. We'll make sure they're in serviceable condition and not dangerous.
I would just add that it's something that looks tasteful,
Yeah.
It's gonna be on full display, right?
Right.
was
We're
gonna say,
thinking of Auburn Tiger colors.
Yeah.
I make a motion, we don't do that.
There's bigger plans in the future for that land.
Yeah.
Right, yeah,
So this
Yeah.
is a temporary thing.
right. And
It's too
depending on
bad you
that-
can't use that post as for, that thing that's up front.
Right.
But you could put a platform there and just put a roof over it and leave it at that.
Well, that platform was built some time ago and it wasn't waterproof correctly, and so we don't want to put anybody on that right now. But moving forward, for next season, if we do not have a firm plan for development, we'll do something a little more permanent than tents. But once again, it'll be designed tastefully and all that.
Thank you. Appreciate your work.
Yep.
Thank you. All right, Zinder, Miss Jennifer.
Hello, I am Jennifer Bonino. I'm with Zender Communications. I'm going to be giving you an update on our marketing efforts for April and May. We'll start with media and then move into some creative and digital and our social media. From a media standpoint, we're always looking for new publications to put our destination in. New Orleans Magazine is one of our newer ones, reaches a highly affluent audience, skews very much on the culinary scene. We were able to score a spread here, and we feature some new creative that we're going to talk about a little bit later in this presentation, promoting Endless Summer. We also received 150 words of copy promoting the destination. The second visual you see here is our Facebook canvas. If you're not familiar with it, this is an excellent new opportunity where in Facebook you can have both live action video and static imagery that you can then sort of carousel through. So we're featuring all of our beach neighborhoods here. It's been very successful for us. From an added value standpoint, our media team is always looking to, for every dollar that we place, we're looking for another dollar of free advertising there. So the top line you see, we have placed over $4 million in paid media right now. The added value that we have gained is a little over $2.25 million. So that's all added value, free media that our media team has negotiated on your behalf. So in all, about $6.6 million in media, and we're only paying for 4.3. So that's great. Our Spring Digital Co-op program is performing very well for us. There are 3 different digital opportunities, 2 banner ads, and also some Facebook advertising. Each of our partners is on track to meet or exceed their goals, and that began in April and will run through June. For brand digital performance, mobile continues to be an excellent channel for us, for our visitors. The first you see is the Facebook Canvas that has reached over 10 million impressions and exceeded industry averages on the click-through. The second you see is what we call native advertising. If you're not familiar with it, there are ad networks that serve up editorial advertising in publications like Southern Living, Forbes, Washington Post, and this is a story on YOLO, sponsored by Visit South Walton. Our SEM, which is our search engine marketing, continues to exceed industry averages. Our media team is spending a lot of time looking at the competition, analyzing keywords to ensure that we're optimizing. You can see how that work has resulted. If you look back at April of last year compared to this year, much higher on that front as well. So creative. I mentioned that we have launched a new campaign which we're calling Endless Summer. If you are aware, a lot of schools these days are actually going back as late as early September. So we felt that there was an excellent opportunity to promote squeezing in that one last vacation, especially at a time in South Walton where our weather is still great, the crowds have thinned out a little bit, and give that ability to have one more family trip. So we've placed outdoor. This is digital outdoor. The beauty of digital is that you have the ability to actually rotate your message based on what time of day it is. So you'll see in the morning rotation, we're talking about wake up to more summer. Midday, stretching out your summer, and then night is obviously promoting sunset. These are running in New Orleans, Nashville, Atlanta. We also took our existing TV campaign and edited the back end to tag it with Endless Summer. That's also running in some of our key markets like Atlanta, New Orleans, Nashville, Birmingham.
Mayor?
Yes.
Quick question. Were we able to get rid of the billboards on I-85 in Atlanta? Because that road's closed.
It's open now.
Yeah.
Oh, it is open?
Yeah.
I thought it was going to be closed.
Just before Memorial Day weekend.
I think it just did.
Thank you.
No problem. Then also from a video standpoint, as you know, we have a lot of different video vignettes that allow us to promote the destination. So we've edited that footage as well to promote Endless Summer. We have a family version, and then we also have the weekend traveler version. And then in addition, we're promoting this Endless Summer campaign in banner advertising. We recently promoted with new Creative Art Week and also had some radio that promoted that event. Digital Graffiti was another event that we helped create advertising for to promote, and also had radio running on Pandora, and that ran in markets like Dallas, Mobile, Montgomery, New Orleans, and Nashville. On a social media standpoint, this slide just represents year-over-year growth. We continue to see excellent growth in our social channels across Twitter, Instagram, Pinterest, Facebook, YouTube as well. This represents our Facebook growth versus our competitors. So we've separated out growth and engagement. We've also updated our competitor list here. And you'll see that Visit South Walton is in third highest of growth. So we're spending a lot of time watching competitors as well, optimizing our spending to try to make sure that that number competes. This next slide represents engagement, and so you can see that we're trending a little bit behind there, but a lot of that I would attribute to Fort Myers has got a huge paid promotion that's kind of spiking those numbers right there. So we'll continue to watch that as well. One other thing that I forgot to mention earlier is we did also just complete a photo shoot for meetings. Sorry, I should have mentioned that in creative, but that'll give us some more photography that we can use to promote our meeting space.
Jennifer, on your growth, Facebook growth, and now I guess it's been Facebook all along that we've been doing these reports on every 2 months. And so so now there's a page engagement versus competitors. This is one of the ones that I was kind of concerned about, is that how come we got so far behind? And it looks like we're moving up a little bit, but what's attributing that?
I think it all depends on spend as well. So we did see some dips when we weren't spending as much behind paid social media. It's become a pay-to-play game. It used to be very much organic. Now it's how much money you're putting behind those posts. So I think you're seeing that increase in the growth, somewhat in the engagement. We just need to continue to watch how our competitors are spending money in social.
Okay, yeah, let's watch that. Okay, thank you.
One other thing before I move on to content marketing that we've recently implemented is Travel Tuesdays. I saw it in my feed today. It's geo-targeted hashtag called Travel Tuesdays, where we're actually geo-targeting messaging to visitors who are in our destination but not actually from here, and we're driving them to the visitor center. So if they come in on a Tuesday and mention the hashtag Travel Tuesdays, they're actually going to get some sort of free item, a beach towel or a Yeti cup or things like that. And then finally, content marketing. This continues to be an excellent opportunity to inform our visitors on the wonderful things that we can do here. So this represents some recent content, 8 things to do with your family. I actually pulled it up before I got here because I'm with my family now, and there's some great tips. And then obviously brunch and Instagram, what you can get some really great photos while you're in destination. And that's all I have, unless you guys have any questions.
Any questions? No, we're good. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Director's update. Who's first? Is Dawn up?
We'll know if this is
Well,
right.
the
when I
real,
get
yeah.
here. It is me. Hi. Good morning. Dawn Trumper, Director of Sales. Thank you so much for this opportunity to present to you today. I'm excited to be part of the team. In my first week, I have met with 4 of our lodging partners so far, learning about their needs and priorities, and have meetings set for the rest of our team this week and then early into next. Let me give you a few updates on our group sales missions. Since our last meeting here, the sales team attended Plan Your Meetings Live. This was in Chicago. The trade show was in partnership with Meeting Planners International. There were a total of 17 speed meetings with our planners. Unfortunately, the show did not meet our expectations, as more than half of the planners in attendance do not actually meet outside of the Chicago area. So we'll continue to research opportunities in Chicago. It is one of the cities that our lodging partners have expressed interest in reaching out to more, and so we'll look further into opportunities in that market. In May, we attended Capital Events in Tallahassee, which was also a new meeting show for us. There were 85 planners in attendance here, and the team was able to meet with 15 planners interested in learning more about our South Walton properties. For the leisure market, Visit South Walton sponsored the Birmingham Wine, Women, and Shoes. Through this sponsorship, we were able to connect with more than 300 affluent, socially connected women in the event. There were 2 participating lodging partners in attendance with us. That was the Hilton Sandestin Beach and the Courtyard by Marriott. And 2, our current Artist of the Year, attended with us as well. The event actually raised over $70,000 for their local charity. Upcoming events for group sales. The sales staff is attending IBTM, which is the Institute for Business Travel Management, actually next week in Fort Lauderdale. It's a 3-day meeting professional show. It provides 30 mutually matched one-on-one appointments with our team and event planners, mostly corporate and incentive based. So we'll look forward to great opportunities there. And then in July, we'll be sponsoring the Fort Worth, Dallas Meeting Planner International Chapter Luncheon. So we will present and feature the destination during the lunch, and we'll also take our partners as well. We'll be attending with us Sandestin Golf and Beach Resort, Topsail will be attending, the Pearl, and Watercolor Inn and Resort will go with us as well. It's actually the largest meeting of the year there. We'll expect about 150 to 175 planners in that market. Any questions about that?
Nope.
Okay. Our visitor center stats. The visitor center received 1,532 visitors in April. This was a 31% increase over last year. And we had a 78% increase in merchandise sales, the monthly total of $4,040. In May, we hosted 1,403 visitors. This was actually a small decrease over last year, but a 14% increase in merchandise sales. And to date, 11,000 visitors have come through the center, and we are at $23,712 in merchandise sales. So updates on our Visitor Center events. During National Tourism Week, the Visitor Center staff greeted 322 visitors, serving orange juice and treats to express our gratitude for these visitors. In May, we actually hosted Visit Florida 231 Welcome Center team to South Florida for a FAM. During the one-day trip, they visited state parks, they took a stroll down 30A, tried paddleboarding on a coastal dune lake, and had lunch at Seaside, and then stopped for ice cream. We did this so that they would be familiar with our area, as there are many, many travelers that come through the Visit Florida complex, and we wanted them to be certainly aware of everything that we have to do here. The Visitor Center team attended the annual 231 Welcome Center Spring Festival. That event drew approximately 1,200 visitors. And then in April, the team traveled to the I-10 Welcome Center on a peak Friday, manned a booth, and promoted spring and fall travel in South Walton. And the team interacted with about 200 visitors during that event. And then upcoming on June 9th, the Visitor Center team will actually attend the I-10 Welcome Center Summer Festival. We're expecting about that same number of a couple of hundred visitors that we'll interact with during that time.
Where is that I-10 center?
That is a great question that I will find out.
It's in Pensacola? Oh, okay, thank you. There we go.
It is in Pensacola.
Good job. All right.
Any questions for me today?
Anything else? Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you so much.
Mm-hmm.
Good morning again.
Good morning.
It's still morning. So One of the things I wanted to talk about this morning, kind of piggybacking off some of the stuff Zender said, I wanted to discuss the April and May leads. You'll notice that in April we had 7,243 leads, and in May we had 8,320 leads. 22 leads actually, and those come directly in from those co-ops and other things that we talked about that we're going to go out for purchase right now. Those of you that are interested in participating in co-ops, I always like to remind you that all of these leads are they go straight to you if we're a completely opt-in database, and remember you only get information you only receive the information that they want you to have, so they can ask about your lodging facility and not ask about Visit South Walton, and they can ask about Visit South Walton and not the other lodging facilities. So these are all qualified, and so our database administrator, she puts all of these leads in, and they all get the different pieces that we put out, such as the visitor guide. So those of you that are interested in wanting to participate in co-ops, these are the kind of numbers we put up each month. And then secondly, I wanted to talk about the new e-newsletter. We talked it out with Zender and did some looking at how others put their newsletter together and made some recommendations, and we did some e-newsletter revisions. Currently it's easier to read, it conforms more to industry standards, and it's easier to view on mobile, and it's actually getting a lot of feedback, people saying they really enjoy it, they're clicking through to read the story, so it's a lot more interactive than it has been in the past. From there, over Memorial Day weekend, the whole team traveled to Decatur, right outside of Atlanta. Visit South Walton was the presenting sponsor for the Decatur Arts Festival 2017. And you see how the Visit South Walton logo right there is kind of at the bottom. That's actually their logo they use for everything. So anywhere they put the Decatur Arts Festival 2017 logo, the presented by South Walton was always there. So anything that was said the 3 months leading up to the Decatur Arts Festival had the Visit South Walton logo there. So we had complete control over that activation, and it's of course Decatur's right outside of Atlanta, so a lot of those people know us, but not everyone. And so we had an opportunity May 26th and 27th to do. There were approximately 65,000 attendees. We gave out probably 1,500 pieces of merchandise between beach towels and those sort of things. Communications was with me, sales was with me, marketing was with me, and we also had some people from Zender. So there were a lot of meaningful conversations. And so, once you have that meaningful conversation, you can give them a gift and they really enjoy it. The other thing that we brought with us was Marisol Gullo, the Artist of the Year, and she created 2 pieces, a piece each day. So not only did she create these pieces, but they were interactive. So we got to have conversations about the art and everything that's going on in South Walton. And it was a really good festival. Everyone seemed to really enjoy our tent. We were the largest tent there, and we pretty much owned Decatur Art Festival. I have to say good job to the team for doing a really good job with that. And then next month, Carly and I attend the CDME program through Destination Marketing Association. We will be working hard to get our CDME certificate, so you'll be seeing that quite a bit in the next couple months. And then lastly, a couple things that we have going on. Brand photo shoot will be coming up June 19th through the 22nd. The visitor guide, you're probably getting emails. Those of you with accommodations are getting emails now, and we're wanting to make sure that all your accommodations information is up to date, because we are working on a redesign for the visitor guide. Those of you that have requested coasters in the next little bit, those are currently in process of being printed, and they now have a little bit longer shelf life, because instead of having events on them, they now have beach safety on them, and it's one more opportunity to get that beach safety message out. And of course there's no shelf life on that. We want everyone to be safe. Worked hard on the sea turtle information with Friends of South Walton Sea Turtles and Turtle Watch, and there will be a new rack card, a new activity book, and a new cleaning out, as well as a placemat in some of the restaurants. We have an approved Houston activation that we're working on that will be in the Woodlands over 2 days, a tax-free weekend, that we don't have all the details worked out, but it's been approved. And we're also in discussion with Chicago. For those of you may know, we did something in the past with the 900 shops in Chicago, right there on Magnificent Mile. We're looking at that again as well. And then we're actively planning Boudin Bourbon and Beer. All three of those activations will be integrated activations, and they will have a sales component, they will have a communications component, and then the whole objective, a marketing component. So we're looking forward to all of those. Any questions? Thank you.
Good job. You got a lot going on. That's good.
Thank you.
All right, Mr. David.
Hello, I'm
morning.
David Demarest. I'm the new Communications Director. We'll be giving you a brief overview of our PR activities. PR is the business of good news, and Walton County is a great place to spread good news about. We need a little snapshot here so that you can see that the articles are continuing to roll in, continuing to reach out to members of the media, and that is a verifiable value. These numbers are fairly conservative, but we want to make sure that if we're saying we've had a key interaction, that means we've had phone calls, we've had emails that are emails back and forth, not just emails sent into the void. And as you can see, in just the March through May high points there, we're hitting the markets we want to hit. We've got some of Atlanta's more affluent neighborhoods and publications listed there. We've got a good one out of Houston. Also, Coastal Living is, of course, a great magazine to be in, as well as Lonely Planet, which is a nationwide publication based out of Nashville. We've been doing press trips, so we've had 3 press trips in April and May. Last one was with April Chapman Thomas. She's with Southern Hospitality Magazine and Atlanta Journal-Constitution. When she left, she thanked me for the trip and told me she had 4 good pitches in mind. And that's what we want to do. If somebody comes down here, we want to have them go home with their camera loaded up with great photos and their heads full of good stories about South Walton that they can continue to pitch for years. Although we push most of our trips, our FAM trips, to the fall or winter or need times, I want to be able to come up before you next time and show you that the articles have kept rolling in. So as we're pitching themes now, we're talking all natural adventure, we're talking summer travel, even more local stories. The beach buys is what I call it, the new regional access and beach properties that we buy. We put out a press release on that as well. That's something that's fairly unique for Walton County TDC, so that's something we can really be proud of. And in addition to getting it out on a wider scope, it was nice to see even 30A.com picked it up, put it on Facebook, got 100,000 views, so it was a good opportunity for people to say, hey, TDC is doing a great job, thank you. And that's not always the Facebook messaging, so it's good to give people a chance to be positive like that. For the Atlanta activation, I was up there as well. Went up a few days early to meet with journalists. That's a great way to make that face-to-face connection, provide them with information about South Walton, some photos. Best case scenario is when they can do a story after meeting with me without ever even having to come down here. But at the very least, they're more susceptible to pitches. They have my contact information, and they can reach out. And they have been. So Laura Finney from the Atlantean, which is a very affluent crowd, has been emailing back and forth about story ideas. So those are great things. A lot of new faces, so we're updating the crisis communication plan and hoping to never use it. And as far as our new hires, it's very exciting. We're getting to build a communications team here, which will be able to do things we've never done before. Matt Algren, who's lived in the area for 22 years and written at Northwest Florida Daily News, Destin Log, and about all the magazines in the area for the past 9 years, has come on board. He's got a great understanding of the area. He has been able to churn out content for us already. That's content we'll be able to share with our partners share with media across the nation, and give us that great content. Second day on the job today is Alex Green, right there. Alex grew up in Thomasville, Georgia. Before joining the Marines, always had family ties to this area, and his wife is in the hospitality business, so she was actually moving here. Alex was the head PR person for the North Carolina Department of Health, so lucky to have him on board and in the area. And we just put out an offer and received an acceptance for a community relations specialist yesterday. A young woman who's lived here for the past year, moved here. Her husband was a Top Gun pilot in the Navy and is working at Eglin, but they live here in Walton County. She is very impressive. And what this team gives us the opportunity to do is really roll together these strengths. So one example is Matt is creating this content. Alex is going to be able to take that content and do videos related to the content. Christine, our community relations specialist, is going to be able to bring stories, our partner stories. She's a big believer in face-to-face communication. So she's going to be in contact with our partners, telling us what's new, what we should know about, and telling them what the TDC can do for them. So it's a great full circle there. We're going to be able to provide excellent communication for our media partners and keep telling that good news. And just so everybody likes to see themselves in print, and these are some of the highlights there. And you can see that we've gotten, not just the print, but the good art that goes along with it.
Excellent.
That is it for me.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thanks, Dave. Good job.
Good morning again. Brian Kellenberger, Director of Beach Operations.
You again?
You again. I'll be quick. Beach operations updates. Daily garbage collection for April, as you can see, we're averaging around 200 bags a day. Pretty normal. Year over year, we were up slightly. For May, a little bit higher daily rate. You can see the spike for Memorial Day weekend. Year over year, slightly down, not much. No attributable reasons for that, just down slightly. Leave No Trace. This is our Leave No Trace program. We run in the dead of night. As you can see, we're getting a lot of items, averaging between 50 to 150 a day. Sometimes a little bit lower. It spikes over the weekends. This is our year over year. This graph's a little out of whack because we didn't really start last year in April like we did this year. And also we have a slightly different counting methodology that has increased the count a little bit. This is for May. Once again, spike over Memorial Day weekend. As you can see, not quite the bigger difference. I mean, there's still a big difference, but not as much as it was for April year over year. Once again, Leave No Trace. It's a good program. It usually takes the first part of the summer season for people to start getting the message around, what I call organically. And we'll see a decrease as the year goes on. But as we get more visitors, even though we have a fairly good signage program out there, the message doesn't always get out. So we're working on getting the message to our bed tax collectors so they can get it out. And hopefully we'll lower this number because we really don't want to do this at night and take people's stuff, but we have to. Beach code enforcement. This is our total number of contacts for the month. This is year over year, April 2016, April 2017. As you can see, a big jump. Of course, that's attributable to our doubling of officers on the beach. The pie charts is the disposition of the encounter, and so as you can see, it stayed the same relatively from last year to this year. This is May contacts for 2016 over 2017. Once again, big jump in the number of contacts we have. We're really getting out and meeting and greeting people now. Once again, disposition, pretty much the same. As you can see, we added a category there called other option. So disposition is what the outcome is of the meeting. Is it a verbal warning, written warning, citation? Other disposition is where we encountered somebody and it was a friendly reminder or something like that. Didn't require official action. We do catalog all this, all of our interaction in a customized MS Access database so that we can go back and research. Because the big thing about code enforcement is we have to give proper notification of non-compliant behavior, a period to cure. That period to cure depends on the infraction or the non-compliant behavior. And so, plus, we like to keep all this stats so that when we come back to y'all for review and consideration of changes to the code, we have stats to back it up. This is some of our items or categories that we deal with mostly. So it's glass. So we had 83 glass contacts for April, 154 for May. Dogs, 231. Dogs are a very popular item on our beach.
What do you do with the extra dogs?
Pardon me?
What do you do with the extra dogs?
They don't let us keep them. Anyway. So anyway, dogs are typically people that live here. There are some people that visitors that bring their dogs. There's rental properties that advertise dog friendly. Kind of a misadvertisement because you have to be a resident to get a permit to have your dog on the beach. Bonfires, once again, bonfires are very popular. 200 in April, 198 in May. As you can see, the compliance rate is pretty good on that. The South Walton Fire District does a good job of permitting those, good job of sharing information with us, and our guys do a wonderful job of checking on them. Since most bonfires are done by vendors have gotten the message that the county commission is keeping a keen eye on them, and they're acting in good behavior. The rest of these are leave no trace or vendor contacts. So this is leave no trace. Once again, only 34 contacts. This is where we would find their equipment they left out overnight, failed to pick up at the end of the day. That's for April. 26 in May. So if you think about the number of chairs that are rented, the number of vendors we have on the beach, it's a pretty good ratio of compliant behavior. This is just a miscellaneous vendor contacts out of the vendor zone, not having authorized up on property authorization, stuff like that. Once again, pretty low encounter rate, a little bit more in May. Beach code enforcement updates. We've hired a new assistant. As you recall, y'all approved in our 2017 budget to hire 2 code enforcement administrative assistants. Melanie Walters is our latest hire. She's started last week and is quickly learning the ropes, so to speak. We also hired our last officer, Daryl Godden. He's a former Walton County Sheriff's Office deputy, career deputy, retired and couldn't sit at home, so he's now working with us. Great guy. Hired 2 seasonal part-time beach ambassadors, Desiree Del Romano. She's actually, unfortunately, out on a bereavement leave right now. She had a death in the family. And the other one is Kerrigan Weekly, who's in our audience back here. And she's, like I said, they work 40 hours a week, but they're seasonal, so they're considered a part-time employee. So that makes 4 beach ambassadors, plus our beach ambassador manager, John Callan, who's a working supervisor, getting the word out on the beach. So their typical day is roaming the beach. We post them up at regional beach accesses to catch people coming on the beach in the morning, to let them know about new ordinance revisions and stuff like that. And we're gathering stats on them as well. So at the end of the year, we'll have what their efforts are. Some of the code revisions that we adopted earlier in the year are working great. Previous discussion, we took over the special event permitting processing in our office, and it's working great. The planning department was doing a good job. They just didn't have the intimate knowledge that we do of all the beach accesses. And especially with the code revisions that happened, we went ahead and took that over. We were going to wait until we got our office renovated, but that got delayed a little bit. We went ahead and took it over. Tricia Goff was our other administrative person. She has worked wonderfully picking all this up, and her office is right outside mine. I get to hear her interact with the people, and she's great. We're stopping a lot of the issues that normally we would have to handle as an enforcement mechanism on the beach, and that was the whole intent. So it's working great. I appreciate the resourcing in that area. The customary use code that was adopted back in April of last year, and then, June of last year, and then was going into effect of April of this year. As you know, they put a committee together. There were some slight revisions to the original adoption that came out as ordinance 2017-10. and it brought it back to what customary use was intended to do. We didn't have a whole lot of complaints up until Memorial Day weekend from either side. Either side would be the people exercising customary use or the Gulffront property owners wanting customary use provisions enforced. Memorial Day weekend, we did get a lot of them. And there's a few hot spots in the area, so we're focusing on those areas. Also met with our marketing department and Jay and admin about getting the message out. So we're revising our beachgoers guide to include a half trifold section of customary use rules and regs. David is putting together some communication blurbs to get out that are concise messages of what is allowed. And we'll be putting some individual signage at certain beach accesses that explain in a very concise message what is allowed by customary use. And those are the hot spots I was talking about. We have somewhat delayed on changing all of our signage because, as you know, the customary use code is being challenged in the court of law, and we didn't want to go out and change all of our neighborhood or our beach access signs that we have at the top and bottom of the boardwalks, and then have to go back and change it again. And so we felt like getting the message out through instant media and publications that will expire fairly quickly. Beachgoer guides will be expired, you know, the source will be exhausted by the end of summer, so you won't have literature out there that's inconsistent message. So as the summer progresses, we expect this to heat up even more, and we'll take it on as it comes to us, as in advertising to get the message out, enforcement, you know, opportunities, efforts to quell the issues. So that's it with beach code enforcement updates. Any questions on that?
Questions?
I publish a monthly activity report. Are y'all interested in having that emailed to you? It's a compilation of all the data we collect.
Sure.
And it has it by category, disposition, by officer, and it's got the graphs like we have here, but it's more in depth.
Lord, I'd love to have it.
I'll have our secretary send that out to you via email.
Okay. Yep.
How's the enforcement of the new tent regulations?
Well, you know, the way that those codes were adopted, so we had revisions to Chapter 22, and we also have revisions to Chapter 23. Chapter 22 is Waterways and Beaches Activities Code. Chapter 23 is Customary Use. So the basic rules on the tents are there's no tents bigger than 6 by 6 allowed on public beaches. If you are a private owner on a privately controlled beach, you're allowed to have a tent of your choice and your authorized visitors. If you are a person exercising customary use, okay, so exercising customary use means I'm an uninvited guest on a private property, you're not allowed to have a tent at all. Okay? And so there's been some once again, because of our somewhat delays in communications getting all this out, there's been a little misunderstanding. Some people think there's no tents allowed. They don't understand the distinction between public beach and private beach. What vendors are allowed to do versus, you know, on public beach versus private beach. You know, we have two types of vendors: delivery vendors on public beach, specific place vendors on private beach. And so we're working through all that. People are getting the message. You know, I'd say they're getting it. We have our new online complaint form. People are using that generously, which is good. We wanted them to do that. I mean, you know. We want to do it. It also gives us accurate data because you can't submit the form until you fill in all the fields that are required to fill. Now we realize that some people are giving us fictitious names, but we're still getting pretty accurate data. And the good thing about it is it goes into our access system, so it's how we assign the different cases to the officers. It also is generating a ArcGIS map that shows where all these different infractions are happening. So at the end of the year, we can look at it graphically that way. We can, once again, we'll produce the typical reports that I produce, complaint by category, complaint by complainant, and we'll have it broke down into different beach communities. So, anyway, the answer to the question is there's still going to be some confusion on the beach about who has a tent. Are they allowed to have the tent? Why isn't code enforcement do anything about the tent that they may or may not be allowed to have? And we'll work through those as we get through the year. If anybody has any particular questions, they can call me or Jeff McVeigh, and we'll help understand. Any other questions about beach code enforcement?
Good.
Once again, thanks for the resourcing on that. It's really helped out a lot. We hope to make some big improvements this year. And we got a couple more officers in for next year's budget. So, capital improvement projects. Multi-use path, Creighton Beach, Western Lake. Phase 1 is done. Hope everybody's got a chance to go out and look at it and enjoy it. That was a joint project between us and Public Works. Phase 2 actually has two components, a A and a B. The two components are the bike path section, or the multi-use path section, and the parallel parking, which was part of our 30A. Parallel parking is complete, so we have that on the north right-of-way side, east of 283, and on the west side of 283, south of 30A. So it looks great. The contractor's finished. I believe there's a few small punch list items to take care of, but people are using it. And that is the type of parking that I was referring to that we're going to be putting down in the other areas. Parallel right-of-way parking with what I call the door saver strip.
Brian, what are they going to do with that path on the south side?
Path on the south side will be removed under the Phase 2 construction. So it'll be removed from 283 down to the entrance of from the entrance of the state park to Buttercup Lane in watercolor. It will remain from 283 to the state park entrance. Now, there's a realignment of the trailhead that's on the north side of the road. Right now, it's a slightly west of the main entrance. It's going to go more in line with that entrance. There'll be a crosswalk put there, a signalized crosswalk. We have one temporarily down at where we have the crosswalk now. That'll be moved down. And so that'll consolidate all of that crosswalk behavior in one area. It gets rid of the bike path where we had those pinch points across those bridges, very dangerous, so take all that out.
They'll start moving that this year?
Yeah, the reason that portion of the bike path got delayed is we were seeking an easement from the state park system, and they changed management about a year and a half ago. The previous management had agreed to an easement, and what it is, it's a grading and drainage easement. The bike path will still be in the right-of-way, but we had to manipulate the dirt that is actually in the state park area, okay? And so that required an easement. New management came in, they didn't quite see it the same way, decided they weren't going to grant the easement. We've now met with some other people that are involved with the state park system and DEP. They seem more favorable, have actually given what we believe to be a favorable nod. We've been in meetings with them. We expect to get the easement pretty soon. And the reason we ask for that is, there's large utility poles. In order to get the path north of the poles, as opposed to have them Solomon in and out of them, requires that easement. So that's why that was delayed. But yeah, we feel like we're getting pretty close. The design's already there, the permitting's there, and we'll be able to let that portion of that contract's already done. It's already let. The contractor's just waiting to get notice to proceed based on those slight design changes and easements. Okay, so 98 to 38 West Connector, that's the end down there. Linda Gates has been spearheading that last portion of the bike path or the multi-use path on 30A. That also required an easement from Topsail, which I believe we've gained. And she was seeking some state funding. We agreed that we could just fund that in 2018, so it's in the budget, I believe, if it didn't get struck. Phase 2 is the section along 98. Once again, we're expecting reclassification of that section of road. And in the event when they do reclassify it, they'll put sidewalks in adjacent to it, which can become part of our system. If not, it'll make it easier to put a path in because you can put it closer to the road. As a rural classification, your path has to be so many feet off the road. It gets involved in that double swell and made it problematic to put it in. 3 to 5 year project, so I'm probably going to drop that off on our next update, and when we get somewhere closer to it, we'll bring it back into updates. Okay. Multi-use path repair replacement. This is our section of the bike path from 283 headed west to Highway 83. We're about 90% complete with design and permitting, and it will be a new 10-foot wide path, pulling the whole path up, putting in new base. New appropriate thickness of asphalt. It'll be thickened even more at the driveway cuts. They will also start to establish our new design standards, which is continuous ribbon. So driveway cuts will have to be stopped on each side of it, as opposed to what most we have now is where driveways go through it. The reason for this is so that it makes the path more of a continuous path, and cars will have to give more of a right-of-way to the pedestrians and bikers. Also, we'll improve sight triangles at the different driveway and roadway cuts. We're adding in some what I call rest stop areas, so it's bump outs in the path with some bench seating and some garbage cans that'll give people a place to get off the path and rest if they need to. We've located those in appropriate locations that are somewhat scenic. New signage that will complement and mimic our existing signage. You remember about 10 years ago, we put in the architectural aluminum signage, identification signage. So we'll be supplementing that. Multi-use path wooden bridge replacement project. As you know, a lot of our coastal dune lakes have wooden bridges or approaches to the metal spans. Those have reached their service life or are getting close to it. We're about 60% complete with the design and permitting with that. There's a few of them, Alligator Lake and Little Redfish Lake, may go onto a delayed program to be built along with the new spans that are coming. As you know, those are both under design by Public Works. They have introduced some conceptual designs that includes that path as part of the span. There is, of course, a appropriate barrier in between, and they're typically architectural railings of some sort that are traffic resistant. But it would make as you know, the path at Alligator Lake is along the causeway that was built there, pretty close to the road. Our wooden bridge there, we had that failure of the pipe that goes underneath. And so we're working with Public Works to integrate in those bridges in those areas. The other ones we'll move forward with and replace those, and we're making those 10 foot wide as we put them in. So as new path comes along that's 10 foot wide, it'll be right there. As you know, all of our metal spans are 8 foot. So a slight pinch point, but we of course don't want to replace those those metal spans right now. Beach access renovations, NRDA Phase 3, that's the stuff from the first restore money from the BP oil spill. Gulfview Heights and Ed Walleen are complete. Those were mainly mechanical, electrical, plumbing upgrades to the bathhouses. Ed Walleen did get 2 new picnic pavilions. The neighborhood beach access in Dune Allen, that's right there where Allen Loop East End hits 38. And it is almost complete. Should be done here shortly. It's a new neighborhood beach access. And then the canoe kayak launch over on East Mitchell, which is off of 283 North, also known as Bay Road. Last road to the right, go down a block and a half or so, and it's a small lot way in. It's be a canoe kayak launch under construction end of July, probably maybe August. Walton County TDC projects, as you know, over the last 2 years, I've put money in the budget to do what I call the facelift to our regional beach accesses and neighborhood beach accesses. FY216 budgeted money. We're real close, 90% complete with design and permitting. As you know, all these require FDP permitting because they're seaward of the coastal construction conservation line. So about 90% complete. We'll be issuing the construction RFP sometime during the summer. And we'll schedule these to be built during this upcoming fall and winter season. About 16 neighborhood beach accesses and 4 of the regional beach accesses. And then for FY 2017, I did the remainder of them. We just started the design and permitting effort. We'll do that through the winter. Let the contract for construction sometime in spring or summer, and then expect to do that construction in the fall of 2018. And that will get us all new public beach access boardwalks. And then we'll work on the parking lots and stuff for the regional beach accesses. Dune Allen Regional Beach Access, we talked about it earlier. Appreciate your approval of the conceptual design. So not much to talk about there. The Great and Central Parking Area, that's our area down here. Once again, we are exploring some long-term development operating opportunities. We'll have more on that as we progress through it. 38 parking project. The park, that's right-of-way parallel parking. We completed the area in Grayton Beach. We've done the small section down at Eastern Lake Road. That was 8 parking places that are ribbon curb with gravel. There was already some stormwater drainage in there, so pretty easy to do. We'll start with Blue Mountain Beach area next. We had contemplated delaying this, but as you know, this has been going on through 2014. So what we did is we reversed the schedule of construction so that the contractor will be starting in Blue Mountain Beach first, and then Gulf Place, or 393 30A. As you know, that restaurant's under construction right there. This is already some, congestion there, and what we'll be doing won't be a whole lot. And then we're doing the Fort Panic, and it won't start until end of August, middle of September, and pretty much out of tourist season. So Blue Mountain Beach area, I think 17 spaces on the west right-of-way of Highway 83 south of 38, and then a few spaces on Blue Mountain Road that heads off back towards where Big Daddy's Bike Shop is. So that whole corner right there, right-of-way parallel parking, new sidewalks. There's a large Regional Utilities lift station on that corner that's kind of ugly. We're going to make it look pretty, and that'll give a lot more parking around that Regional Beach access. Gulf Place, we're going up the east side of 393, and it will look very similar to the west side of 393, where there's parking, except it'll be improved concrete pavers. It ties into the new restaurant entrance, drive-in, beautify that corner, new crosswalk across Edwa Lane, and we're also looking at some other beautification, hardscape, landscape issues on the southern right-of-way of 38 headed east, where everybody parks. Last year we put in some palm trees and some grass to keep people from parking right in front of the park. Works marvelously. Thinking of something a little less of that, but heading on down that side of the right-of-way. It's very congested right there, and it's people end up parking on the multi-use path. Beach operations maintenance facility renovation. That's the renovation of my office over there. We're adding about 1,200 square feet of new office space. Basically, we're building out one of the bays, interior remodeled, 2-story, and then creating a public reception area in my existing space. We were supposed to have a pre-bid meeting tomorrow. That got postponed to, I think, a week, maybe 10 days, pending some more documents from our engineer. And then you approved a 2,600 square foot pole barn to put some of our equipment under in our compound over there. That's been, that contract's been let. That contractor has put us in queue. We expect that to go in a couple of weeks or a month. It's your basic, what we call chicken truss pole barn, and house our equipment that we have. So, beach operations, any questions? Yes, sir.
In the past, you're doing the beach permits and all that stuff, the public has to have access to your facilities there on Blue Mountain Beach Road. And the past, your gate's always been open.
Yep.
Now, every time I drive by it, it's closed.
Correct.
Can the public still access your office?
We will. We will. We're going to change that. We actually started closing it because of the Leave No Trace program. At the start of the year, we have a lot of people that have been affected by Leave No Trace, had got the message that they could come get their stuff. The first year we did that, we did have a 7-day grace period that we allow people to come and identify their equipment, sign a release, and we would give it back. And we take the opportunity to mine information as to why they didn't know about Leave No Trace. It became very problematic, very confrontational, and we didn't have the resources to handle it. So that's why we started closing the gate. With this new permitting taken on, we're going to have the gate open from 8 a.m. to 4:30 p.m.
Just curious, because I know the public now has to get in.
Right. And we'll add a little bit more signage out by the road to make it easier to find and make it more public friendly.
I'm glad you're doing your job. I'm not doing your job. Good job.
I appreciate it. Any more questions?
Right. Thanks, Brian.
Thank you.
Good job, Brian. Good job, buddy.
Thank you.
We need to give you more to do.
Okay. I have a few items in addition to these three, but The letter to the Attorney General regarding transportation, Clay, do you want to address that?
Yes, at the last meeting, we were instructed to prepare a letter to the Attorney General. I have done so. In the past, the question has been brought up by a prior county attorney prior to Mr. Davis and Ms. Noyes being in that office about whether the TDC can transmit that on its own. I'd spoken to Mr. Davis about it in the process of changeover with him leaving that position. That was not something he got me an answer back to. In an abundance of caution and deference to their office, while I believe the position will be, they do not have an issue with us sending it because they have had the BCC chairman send it on our behalf in the past. I wanted to allow the county attorney's office that opportunity. The reason why is the Attorney General treats questions about a board's responsibilities or authorities, and that would be statutory interpretation of what we can and cannot fund. It must come from a majority of the board and not merely a dissenting or small faction of that. So it's important that the letter be sent as something that the AG is going to recognize. And while certainly our chairman constitutes an official, I believe Mr. Tusa constitutes an official, and I, as the TDC attorney, as a governmental attorney, would constitute an official. If the Board of County Commissioners attorney feels it's best that all correspondence from the county comes directly from the BCC chairman, we have in the past deferred to them, and I would recommend we do defer to them in that position so we have one point of context or back and forth with the AG so we don't have that issue. So I'm waiting. I've talked to Ms. Noyes. In fact, she's called me back while we're in the middle of this meeting. She didn't get back with me yesterday afternoon. So as soon as I hear that from her, we'll get it transmitted one way or the other.
Thank you, Clay. Visit Florida. I just wanted to chat a little bit about that, and I'm sure some of you know what's going on with that. Maybe some of you don't. But obviously, Visit Florida's budget was greatly reduced by 67% from $76 million to $25 million. And the governor has vetoed that, and the legislature will be having a special session starting tomorrow for 3 days to discuss that. Right now, it looks positive from what I'm hearing, folks from Visit Florida and from FADMO. They're saying it looks like they're going to restore the dollars. So we're going to have to kind of wait and see with that. But some of the things that I'm hearing is they're still going to have some really heavy restrictions on how those dollars can be used. So it's something we're watching closely, and we'll certainly update you as we hear what's transpiring with that. One thing, though, that I did want to bring to your attention is I've had some of our industry partners approach me and say, hey, if this does in fact happen and goes through, it's really going to affect us and the marketing we're able to do, because a lot of our partners here take advantage of Visit Florida's co-op programs. And so if in fact there are restrictions on those dollars, even if they return, then I think it's something that we probably need to explore some options of how we might be able to help those partners and offset the difference between maybe what Visit Florida can help them. So anyway, depending on what happens in the next few days, I'd like to have some meetings with some of our partners, see what's going on with them, how it's affecting them, and then see how we might be able to help them out. So I'll keep you informed as we move forward with that process. I did let the BCC know this at the last meeting as well, just kind of what's going on. So like I said, I have had quite a few of our partners approach us, and I think it's important that we see how we can help them depending on what happens with Visit Florida. Land purchases, I just wanted to do a quick update. We purchased some property probably about a week or two after the last TDC meeting. So some great news on that front. We purchased 2 pieces of property, one in Seagrove across from Cafe 30A. That is 1.448 acres, and it's 115 feet of beachfront property. So that's great over there. We need more in that area. And then the other property is over in Miramar Beach across from Amalfi Coast, condominiums. That is 2.03 acres of property and 358 feet of beachfront property. So it kind of bookends Miramar Beach, Scenic Gulf Drive. It's kind of nice that we have something now on both the east and the west side. So we are still on the hunt. We have earmarked a certain amount of money, and we have $6.7 million left of those dollars. So we're still looking for beachfront properties. One piece of property in particular we're looking at is adjacent to the property we just bought in Miramar Beach. There's a home for sale there, and so we're looking at that to see if we can expand that footprint of that property. Might be something we can use that property, put a bathhouse there instead of putting it on the Amalfi Coast property. There were some deed restrictions. They don't apply to us, but I think it's all good that we try to work with our community as best we possibly can. And so anyway, so we're looking at that. We're having some appraisals done, and once we have that, we'll bring that back to the Board of County Commissioners for their consideration. We were looking at a piece of property over in Seacrest. That fell through. The owner was very firm on his asking price, and the Board of County Commissioners did not want to pay that much over appraised value. It was about $6 million they were asking, and the average appraised values, I think, was 4.4. So it was quite a bit over the appraised value. So anyway, so that's it for the way of properties. Wanted just to bring you up to speed a little bit on professional development that we're doing with the staff. I think it's very important that we invest in our staff's future with the organization. So Jason Cutshaw just got through with Southeast Tourism Society's Marketing College. He did that a couple of weeks ago. It's a week-long program, and it's a 3-year program that takes place once a week for 3 years. And at the end of that, you get a certification. You're a travel marketing professional. And marketing, I think, is a little bit of a misnomer. It's not so much as part of it, but it's a great program. Teaches you about research, advertising, public relations, teaches you also admin side of things. So it's very, I think, important for someone in Jason's position to have that knowledge of the organization. So anyway, so Jason just completed that first year. Josh Irvin over in Beach Operations, he just completed the Chamber's Leadership Walton program. So congratulations to him on completing that. We usually send 1 or 2 people per year to that. I think it's a great investment in the team. Brian Kellenberger just completed level 2 of the Florida Association of Code Enforcement training. So there's 4 levels of training there, and he's on level 2. We, after about 6 months' time, we send all of our code enforcement officers to this training. We try to get that done within the first year. As you heard earlier, Kelly Carter and Carly McMillan are participating in the CDM program through DMAI. That's a great program. I participated in that myself several years back. I think it's really important for staff to receive that type of training. Let's see, what else in the way of training? I think that's it. Oh, no, one other thing. So Northwest Florida State College has a program called Ed2Go. It's an online program. And so this is something new for us. I guess we signed up about 6 months ago. And so we have our staff members going through training. We've had about half a dozen folks so far go through. And it's just different things. It can be accounting. It can be something so simple as Excel or PowerPoint. So it's a pretty robust program. And so it kind of fits the need. If somebody's looking for something special in the way of training, they can go through this program. So I think that's really important for us to participate in this as well. Let's see, what else did I have? One last thing that I wanted to talk a little bit about is I've been approached over the past year, and in particular over the past couple of months, a little bit more so than in the past year, but about what do we need to do to encompass the northern part of the county in TDT collections. And so wanted us to have a brief conversation. I know we're probably an hour 3 now. Anyway, just wanted to talk a little bit about what that would look like if it's something we could do. And I know Clay and I have talked a little bit about this. And so I don't know if it's something that we need to have an opinion on, if we want to do a study on. But I'll just tell you, back in Louisiana when I was over that way, there were some destinations that they had a similar situation. And what they did, it was very simple. For these different areas, they collected the tax. And then whatever that tax was they collected, they spent that percentage in the budget on those areas. And so, I don't know if it's something so simple as that. But anyway, I just wanted to bring it up and see if there is an interest there within the council to just explore that option and see. Because I think one thing that could be beneficial is, certainly we have some great assets in the northern part of this county. And I think that could really help us on the southern end where, if you want to go and partake in something on the northern end, well, let's promote that. So maybe if that gets somebody to stay here maybe an extra day and they want to go explore something else and do something else, well, that's an extra revenue, night revenue that we're having. So anyway, not only that, but just if we're bringing in the tax on the northern end, we can spend those dollars promoting the northern end. So anyway, just wanted to bring it up, something that I've had probably half a dozen people bring up to me in the past year to talk about. So
I'll start. I just want to, I think, being on this board and the statutes being wherever the tourist, I guess the bed tax collectors are mainly, is where we've focused all of the attention to. Lately, as Jay has mentioned, we have seen more activities. For instance, Chipola River, you got Choctaw River, there's more canoe programs now where you could kayak and canoe coming down the river. You've got different things up in that northern end that we could take advantage of and start, as we were trying to do with the biking trails and stuff like that, kayaking in the bay. I guess to me, if anything, is what we should possibly do is at least do a study to see what is up there, what's available for these tourists to take advantage of that. And actually, with the 4-lane and the 331, I think even more so, you're going to see more growth up there around I-10 or in maybe even Defuniak, where you see more, hotels or something like that. I know they've got what's the stop, the Mossy Head truck stop.
Mm-hmm.
They've got a hotel or two.
There's a hotel there.
So you're starting to see some. You're starting to see it grow. So I think Jay mentioned something, and he said, we're kind of at the edge. This is a time maybe we need to look at it and start, seeing what all's available up there, because there are a lot of things to do up there, and we're just, we're not giving them enough attention. I don't think at this point in time, because I think we don't.
Well, it's not within the purview of the organization, to be honest. I mean, I think that's a fair statement. I mean, but I think though it should be.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that it's something that we could do. And I mean, let's all be honest. I mean, we're not talking about a lot of money. I mean, the Institute of Senior Professionals did a study a few years back, and from what I recall looking at the report, they estimated that they could probably be about $300,000 worth of revenue. Now, I think they've added a hotel or two since then, so that might be higher. But I mean, even if you're looking at $300,000 to $500,000, I mean, it's certainly something with those type of dollars we could take on and manage those dollars and market North Walton in addition to South Walton. I mean, it's not going to eat up a lot of people's time on staff for visit South Walton.
Right. So, I mean, thoughts.
Does our charter, I mean, it says business South
Mhm.
Walton, calls it South Walton Tourist.
Well, actually, we're the Walton County TDC, but we're Walton County TDC, but the taxes right now are South Walton. Clay, do you want to elaborate on that a little bit? You and I have talked about that.
Yeah, technically the name of the organization, no matter how we style ourselves, is the Walton County Tourist Development Council. The reason for that is the Florida statute that creates us says the name of this board will be the, quote, blank, with a parenthesis, insert name of county, Tourist Development Council. So we're bound by Florida law to call ourselves the Walton County Tourist Development Council. We are what is defined by statute as a sub-county taxing district, meaning we represent a portion of the whole county in which we collect the tax from rather than tax the whole county. I believe there are 3, perhaps 4 other counties in the state that do not go all county when they enact these. I looked at it not too long ago. There's a report from the state of Florida dealing with the economic impact of that addresses that. But the short answer is we have the ability to spend money broadly in certain areas. One of the provisions of Florida law says that we can spend money within this state or to promote tourism within this state. So our spend doesn't have to necessarily be in South Walton, but one thing we've always tried to be mindful of is that our spend should be commensurate to the area in which the bed tax is being collected from. There's not necessarily a proportional taxation based on collection. There is no mandatory requirement per state statute that every dollar spent has to be a heads and beds, although that's one of the policies we've tried to adhere to locally. The question will be with a North Walton issue that's come up several times before, and I've written legal opinions to this body and to 2 prior executive directors on this before. If we wish to do a North Walton Tourist Development Council, the simple fact is you're going to have it approved by referendum. That will be voted on by North Walton, not South Walton. The monies would not be commingled. The monies collected in South Walton would then only be able to be used in South Walton. The monies collected in North Walton would then only be able to be used in North Walton. I know historically, just to give you some background, one of Mr. Toose's predecessors brought that issue up, and based off that Institute for Senior Professionals study about the available tax revenues, the short answer was the amount of money that the TDC was funding at the time to North Walton events was likely going to be greater than the actual tax they would be able to collect because of the way the statute works. Just so you know, the max bed tax you can collect in the state of Florida is 6%. That's when I say bed tax, I'm referring to the tourist development tax, not the tourist impact tax. That's a separate area. Some people may hear it. Right now, only one county does. That's Monroe. So tourist development tax, you can get 6 cents. We levy 4. To get those, you have to have the first cent is levied at either 1 cent or 2 cents. After that, you got a 3-year waiting period before you can levy the third cent. After that, there are other cents that you can bring on. So you could technically get to 3 your first year, maybe more. Walton County, just so you know, does in fact qualify for all 6 cents. Not every county in the state qualifies for all 6 cents. Pretty much any county can get to 5. Only counties designated as high tourism impact counties can actually get to 6. We are one of those counties, even though we are not certified by the DOR. We've never gone and asked DOR to certify us. But in every report they publish, they list we would be a certifiable county if we wish to get that. So the short answer would be, if they start at 2, and even if we jump them to 3 and they can't get that 4th cent immediately, by the time you look at cost of implementation and everything else, it would be tough. It does not mean it's not coming. And so that's one of those foresight issues. Do we look at putting a TDC in place that would serve that, understanding it cuts off any monies that this current organization and its current funding could use to promote North Walton events until that happens? Or do we do it otherwise? The bottom line is we've enacted one tax. So for us to come back, we're going to have to come back and do a separate referendum, is the way the AG's done. There's a pile of AG opinions out there on this. What I will gladly do, I was trying to pull it up here with Jay. I didn't know this would be an issue that we necessarily came up with because one of the commissioners hit him with it somewhat recently. I will be glad to circulate the opinion to Jay and allow that to be sent to each of you as well, so you can look at what that would be. I think it's somewhat enlightening to understand. Our neighboring county, Bay County, had to go through this and had to get opinions from the Attorney General of how to do it. And the thought was, well, could we just open our existing borders up? The answer was no, it's not that simple. So to let everybody understand what we'd have to go through to let that happen. But there's nothing that prevents us from spending money broadly north of the Bay beyond our own desire and policies to do so. There's nothing legal, I should say. Now, certainly there are some equitable concerns that I think this board has always been sensitive to, and I would encourage you to remain sensitive to where we spend the money when it's all collected south of the Bay. But we do have certain exceptions, and then, of course, Walton County just broadly has one set of expenditures we're allowed, no matter how much we collect. That would be true north or south of the Bay, because the total county's population is under 650,000. So we have some additional funding basis we can use to spend money in other capacities that some counties don't get. Same time, we are limited, as we're rapidly coming in to realize when we start looking at property acquisitions, we can only spend 10% of our revenue after we've gone through any reserves that were collected on park facilities, so basically land acquisition. So we get capped because we are under 100,000 total persons. That may ultimately change. As of now, it hasn't. So short answer is, there are two sides to this. Can you do a North Walton TDC? Yes, assuming the public votes to allow it. Is it going to necessarily open the door for North Walton to receive more money or to receive the type of money that it looks like we receive? The short answer is no, it's not. We know that right now. Now, in 10 years, that's not what I'm here to project for you. But I can tell you legally, we can go about setting one up. The question is the cost of maintaining and operating that organization up through that point in time. So the board, in all likelihood, and I'd have to look back in my opinion, I believe the conclusion we reached was this board would serve in both capacities. The only difference to this board is the statute requires that one of the 2 elected official seats, obviously you have 2 elected officials serving up there with you outside of Mr. Anderson. Mr. Anderson's here is the BCC's designate. Says must come from elected officials within the county, with one of those coming from the largest municipality in the county. At this point in time, the largest municipality is Defuniak Springs. So what would happen is, should the North Walton TDC be created as a taxing district, this board would necessarily replace one of its elected officials with, today, an elected official from the city of Defuniak. Everybody else would stay the same. You wouldn't have 2 separate TDC boards operating. You'd have 2 separate promotional organizations operating, or you'd have to create divisions within this one organization to do it. And I know our prior administration teams looked at that and felt that would be incredibly challenging. At least not cost effective, I should say. But I'll defer to any questions. I've looked at this a lot, so I apologize to overload you with information, but I'll do my best to answer any questions you have today.
We'll be happy to have a copy of that letter and review that, and we'll bring it back.
I mean, there's no
Bring it
rush
back
with this. I
next
mean, it's
meeting.
just starting a conversation. I mean, you know, and gather the information, and if it's not in the cards, then it's not in the cards. I mean, but I think it's at least worth the conversation.
Absolutely.
Would having a North County TDC prevent or facilitate the incorporation of South Walton?
Would be wholly unrelated. In fact, I think the most recent opinion I wrote actually did reference South Walton, so that should give you an idea. The last time we looked at that was when it was first coming up, so within the last 2 years. The position I took there was that, and in fact, we've embedded this when we went back through our council guidelines about those seats. I worked with Mr. Tusa just to include a reference in there that should a municipality exist in the sub-county taxing district, it would automatically get one of those seats. So all that would happen is that it's going to be guaranteed a seat on this council if we have a North Walton TDC created at some point for taxing purposes, and South Walton incorporates, then that's going to be your largest municipality, presumably. Of course, I don't know what those geographic boundaries would be, but it would presumably be the largest in the county.
So,
okay.
Anyway, I mean, just starting a dialogue. I mean, you know, if it's not something that comes to some sort of conclusion for a year or two, I just, you know.
We'll bring it up, after we receive some more information.
Sounds good.
All right, thank you.
Could
That's
you
all I
get
have.
Sandestin to build an amusement park up in North County and a big tram to go on?
Casino? No.
All right, anything else?
That's it. Any questions for me?
Any more questions?
All right.
Any comments from the council? No? Any comments from the public?
Thank you, Council. Two brief comments. One is that it really impacted me when Brian said that DEP, this was the first time they had ever had to issue a permit for one of the accessible mats in this part of the state. I just want to commend the staff here, you all, and I've actually been hearing more of this at the BCC level as well, talking about disabled access to parks and recreation facilities. You know, we all work on a lot of important things in our world, but in the overall scheme of things, I think that's probably one of the most important things we can do as a community. So just kudos, and hopefully more and more of that, because I think it's a great thing. And then second, just wanted to add my quick comment in agreement with a couple of the council members earlier about the importance in investing in the area. You know, as long as you're not blowing the budget and you're balancing it with marketing dollars, I think every dollar you can spend on improving this area pays back in spades. And we see it, and we have a lot of needs. I toured with Jay last week the East Corridor, and the grass hadn't been cut in a long time. It looked awful. And I mean, there were weeds this high, and I guess you'll back me up on that, at least what we saw. And I'm just giving my opinion on it. I just think in this area with what we do and what we have, there's no reason. And believe me, representing the Scenic Corridor Foundation, I've been working on this on and off for 10 years now. We've gone to FDOT. It's a state highway. They can't do any more than they're doing. We've gone to the Board of County Commissioners. Budget is tight. There are a ton of priorities. There are a ton of priorities for everybody. But if we don't figure out how to get this done, then shame on us, because there ought to be, if we all pull together, which is a great example of the median maintenance project, it's 3 agencies pulling together so that there's less of an impact on any single budget. And I think that's the kind of thing we have to look at going forward without just driving taxes up and up and up. And so I just think it's critical, with word of mouth being as important as it is, and repeat visitors being important as they are, that we do everything we can to make this place both look great and be as safe as possible. Because that's another thing that this all feeds into, believe it or not. Landscaping matters, and safety as well. So that's all. Thank you.
Thanks, Lee. All right, if there's any others from the public? If there's no others, then do we have a motion to adjourn? We have a motion. We have a second? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Meeting adjourned. Thank you. I almost got 12 o'clock. That gum Brian. I know. It's pretty short. Right. I'll give Brian something else to do. Jeez. All right. Thank you. That's great. Next time.